call. I call this meeting together. Mr. Duhaney, I think we have some informative stuff here.
All right, so Mr. Mayor, members of council, at this time we'll receive a presentation about the update regarding the I-264 Independence Boulevard Interchange Project. The members that's going to be presented will be introduced by Dave Jarman, who is a member of our Public Works Department. Dave, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, City Manager. Appreciate that. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, we thank you for the opportunity to come today and talk about the I-264 Independence Boulevard Interchange Access Project. As you may recall, we previously briefed council on this back in May of 2024. Seems like such a long time ago. And at that point in time, we were knee-deep in the interchange access report that actually started in August of 23. The work is scheduled to be completed by the end of this year with reviews to be done by VDOT and FHWA to follow. So during that time, we've looked at alternatives. The team has, a consultant team. Reviews have been done, modeling's been done, and we've brought that to a point where we can recommend a preferred alternative. And VDOT recommended today or asked today to brief council before we go out to the public and get feedback on the preferred alternative. So council is going to get a chance to see kind of the end product here. Before we get into the presentation, I do want to acknowledge we do have VDOT staff here with us today. Let me introduce them on camera quick. Bruce Duvall is the acting deputy district engineer for project delivery and development. Caleb Brooks is the senior transportation planner, and Angela Ampasa is the transportation planning director. That's our VDOT representative here at the Hampton Roads district. Here locally, we also have our consultant team, WSP. They're based in Virginia Beach. John Hendrickson is the senior vice president of transportation group. Tim Rayner is vice president as well as a traffic engineer. And Kristen Belfield is also vice president as well as traffic engineer. And Kristen is going to be giving our presentation today. I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to her, okay? Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dave. So we're just going to get right into it. All right, the agenda for today, we're going to discuss a little bit about the project history, what's been studied on I-264, talk about our study area, alternatives that we had assessed, the evaluation criteria that we used, and then the preferred alternative that came out of that. We'll discuss a bit of the phasing for funding and the schedule. All right, a little bit about the project history. There have been instances of several studies along I-264 studying different areas. So back in 2016, VDOT did a study along 264 from city of Norfolk Line to Bird Neck, and that studied all of the interchanges along 264 for a planning study. Then in 2020, VDOT did a STARS project on Independence Boulevard, the interchange, as well as Independence Boulevard itself. And STARS is a program that enables us to identify shorter term, targeted like affordable improvements. So lower scale, smaller scale, more affordable projects as a intro to this one. Then in 2021, VDOT completed the I-64, 264, their phase 3 IMR for interchange improvements at the I-64, 264 interchange. Then what we're going to be discussing today is the interchange access report for Independence Boulevard and the study area for that project. All right, so I'm going to go into interchange access report and what that is. That's the official process that VDOT and FHWA use in order to document and identify the traffic operations and safety improvements of any interstate or interchange modification. So it has to be done before the design of the interchange. So we're in that process right now. It's a couple-year process, and we are nearing the end of it process. HR TAC has funded this IAR study, and they'll be funding a good amount of the improvements. So our study area is from Witchduck Road to the west to Rosemont Road to the east. But our improvements are primarily focusing on the Independence Boulevard interchange and improvements at the interchange and then on Independence Boulevard itself. Our hot spots of congestion and safety are primarily between Witchduck Road interchange and the Independence Boulevard interchange, but then also the signalized intersections and pretty much all of the intersections along Independence Boulevard really are congestion hotspots. All right, our analysis process. I'm not going to go into complete detail on this whole flow chart, just give you an overview of what our process is. It's about a couple-year process, so we're nearing the end of that. We started with analyzing our existing conditions to identify what are the issues out there that we want to address. Then we project out the traffic volumes to analyze the no-build conditions to identify if there's any potential upcoming issues that we want to plan for. So then we took those conditions and we identified some improvements for our study area. Took those at a high level and kind of narrowed those down with our study group, with VDOT, with FHWA, and with the City of Virginia Beach, narrowed down what we really wanted to study in more detail. And those were the 3 alternatives that you see in the Tier 2 build column there. So I'll talk a little bit about that process in future slides, but where we are right now, we're in Tier 3 build, which is the preferred alternative. All right, I'm going to go into just a little bit of detail about the 3 alternatives that we assessed in more detail, and then we narrowed those down and selected alternative 3 as the preferred with some additional refinements. So I'll just talk a little bit about alternatives 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to talk in terms of the interchange itself, but then also we have the signalized intersection to the north, which is Bonnie and Euclid, and then the signalized intersection to the south, which is Baxter Road. So for alternative 1, we have a grade separation at Bonnie and Euclid where Independence goes over Bonnie and Euclid, that signal. And then the turn movements are made at a different level. Then at the interchange itself, we removed 2 of the loop ramps and then rerouted those movements. And one of them goes on a flyover that goes from the northbound movement to the westbound movement. So like Mount Trashmore area over to Witch Duck Road area. Then we have a grade separation at the intersection of Baxter Road as well. So then alternative 2 was a different grade separation at the intersection of Bonnie Road and Euclid. And then at the interchange itself, we removed 1 of the loop ramps. And then did some at-grade and intersection improvements at Baxter Road. So this was like a lower scale alternative, not as extensive of improvements. Then for alternative 3, that was a grade separation at Bonnie and Euclid, where Independence goes over Bonnie and Euclid. And then at the interchange itself, we removed 2 of the loop ramps and added the flyover similar to alternative 1. The difference here for alternative 3, we have the ramp to I-264 is relocated down to the Baxter Road intersection, and there are at-grade improvements at the Baxter Road intersection. We found, in assessing these, that for alternative 1, that grade separation at Baxter Road, the benefit that we got out of that just didn't really justify that additional cost of the grade separation. So we ended up with alternative 3 as our preferred, but with some additional refinements to make it work quite well. So the next slide, we'll talk about our evaluation criteria that we use to assess those 3 alternatives. So we assessed them with traffic operations, did traffic modeling for each of those to identify where there's queuing at signalized intersections, how the ramps are operating, how the interstate's operating. We assessed safety on a high level. We assessed multimodal accommodations, so like accommodations for pedestrians through the study area. We assessed the cost of the alternative, so not only the total cost, but construction cost, right-of-way costs, right-of-way impacts. And we took the costs of those, and then I also identified the benefit savings, which the benefit savings is basically people time of delay. So when people can get through there faster, they save time. And so that is considered the benefit part of the benefit cost ratio. So we compared the benefit of the people's time savings versus the total cost. So we collaborated with VDOT, FHWA, TPO, City of Virginia Beach, and we had meetings to discuss all the alternatives, and then we had meetings to come to an agreement on the preferred alternative. And that was alternative 3. So this is a high-level look. We're going to look a little closer detail. This is our preferred alternative. And just wanted to show you on a high level what it looks like. And we're going to walk through each of the aspects, the major aspects of the alternative. All right, for this, I'm going to start to the north, and then we'll just kind of work our way south. And we can answer questions about any of the movements, that you want to look into in more detail, but I'll just kind of walk through each of the aspects. So starting at the north, everything comes back together at Columbus Street. Columbus Street is as existing, and everything will come back to grade, and everything will come back to Columbus Street as it is for existing. So as we're walking further south, the intersection of Bonnie and Euclid is a grade-separated intersection. Independence Boulevard goes over Bonnie and Euclid. And then the turn movements are all made at grade. Then as we're walking further south, we have some ramps coming in and out of Independence and the ramps. And then we have, at the interchange itself, we've removed 2 of the loop ramps in the northeast and the southwest quadrant. And what that does is that eliminates all 4 weaves within the interchange. There's 2 weaves on Independence Boulevard itself, and there's 2 weaves on the interstate. And the weaving movements are, the movements to and from the loop ramps to the main line. And that's really a safety benefit to remove those loop ramps and reroute the traffic. So with that, we have implemented a flyover for the northbound to westbound movement, so like Mount Trashmore to Witchduck Road. And then we have also replaced the bridge on I-264 over Independence Boulevard. So what that enables us to do is widen out the interstate at that location, but it also enables us to open up that pier structure that's underneath the interstate to be able to widen the road to what we need to accommodate all the different movements. So then, as we're walking further south, we have South Boulevard. South Boulevard currently comes in at Baxter Road. And what we've done is we've relocated that just a little bit further north and made that a right-in, right-out movement. Then at Baxter Road, we have a new ramp connection where South Boulevard was. And that ramp connection brings us to I-264 west towards Witchduck or I-264 east towards Rosemont. So, and along with some other signalized intersection improvements at Baxter Road. This improvement also adds sidewalk in areas where sidewalk has not previously been able to be implemented. So this will actually provide a sidewalk connection all the way from Holland Road all the way into Town Center, continuous on the west side of the road. So, and then finally, the last major improvement is the 2-lane ramp. If you're traveling eastbound on 264 and you want to go south towards Mount Trashmore area, so currently that's a 2-lane ramp and it merges down to 1 lane. We're going to extend the 2 lanes all the way to Independence Boulevard so that that ramp doesn't back up onto the interstate. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Tim. He's going to talk about our assessment of this preferred alternative and then what it means in terms of dollars and in terms of funding scenarios.
Thank you. All right, so you heard Kristen talk about the preferred alternative and some of the details of that. So now we're going to get into a little bit of the money and how we might break this up to build this type of project. So we've done an assessment, a reassessment actually, on the refined alternative 3 based on some of the refinements we made since the alternatives were selected. So it's not quite as extensive as we did on the other alternatives, but you can see we included traffic operations, which tells us benefits in terms of time and how much that might cost in savings. Safety improvements, cost estimates right away. We've redeveloped a benefit cost ratio, and then we're going to get a little bit into how this type of project might be phased and funded to get it built in a reasonable manner. All right. So this is where we talk about the cost and the benefit. It's a big number. You can see the cost of the entire project. We're estimating currently at $665.6 million. That includes construction, includes inflation over time of the money. It includes right-of-way acquisitions, utilities, includes everything that we need to build the entire project. This is projected out into 2032. So for the purpose of this analysis, that's our construction date. Currently, HR TAC has been they've been identifying funding, knowing this type of project was coming. They're currently at $207 million. That's money identified. So there's a little bit of room between that 665 and the 207. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. The second half of this equation is the time delay savings. And this is really the time that we anticipate the traveling public will save after the improvements monetized, right? So we take the time savings between what would happen if we didn't build it, what would happen if we did build it, calculated the time savings of every vehicle going through that modeled network, turning that into a time over a 20-year period. And that would be equivalent from 2032 to 2052, which is that's basically our analysis period. So based on all of that calculation, we estimate that the benefit to the traveling public is in the $15 billion range. So that's a pretty good benefit to cost ratio, even for a project of this size. All right. So let's talk a little bit about how we can break this up and build such an extensive project. So this is a little bit all over the place. We're going to break this slide down. This shows 3 phases of construction, and it's 3 phases of projects. It's not phases of construction. Each phase would have its own construction phase, and that's totally different. This is just an effort to see how we can break this project up into smaller pieces for the benefit of funding. So for phase 1, we would start on the south side of the project. We would do the Baxter Road interchange. We would do the flyover from Independence to both eastbound and westbound towards Norfolk and towards Rosemont. Build that big flyover, and really what that does is that allows us to get rid of those weaves that Kristen talked about on Independence and on the interstate. And I'm sure you all have experienced that and understand what a huge benefit that is to the traveling public. So this is something that we can come in, we can build. There's some right-of-way involved. It would include the 2-lane ramp that Kristen talked about south towards Edwin. So this does a lot of nice things in the short term. Phase 2, we would then come in and build the bridge and the ramps along 264. And this would be to clear out that space that Kristen talked about underneath the bridge, getting rid of those piers so that we can put more lanes in and prepare. We have to do that before we can do the north section because of the laneage to that. So this would be to prepare for that inevitable north phase that would complete the entire project. And then we would come in and we would build that north phase, and the project would essentially be complete. So generally, there's some phases that could be moved around, but generally you have to do the bridge phase before you can do the stuff to the north, and you can't do the stuff to the north, or you can't do the stuff to the south if you do the north stuff first. So there's a logic to the sequencing to make sure that all those puzzle pieces fit. But there are some ways that this project can be combined. It can be phased a little bit different, but that was the logic behind this phasing. And as we move further into the process and more into a detailed design type of effort, those types of issues would work themselves out. All right. So one last thing, just for a scale, Each phase is approximately a third of that overall $665 million. So that's just how it kind of broke up with what we wanted to do, which is actually pretty nice. So compare that with the amount of funding that's already been identified. The first phase would be in the $240 million range compared to that $207 million that we've already got identified. So moving forward, this is the executive meetings on the schedule, talking to you all, talking to VDOT's leadership about the project. We're intending to have a citizen information meeting coming up, October, November time range. My understanding is early November is our target date. We've got to submit the report in its final form in November, December timeframe so that it can be reviewed by VDOT and FHWA and all the folks that need to do that. And then we're scheduled to be in front of HR TAC talking about funding and some of this phasing in April to see if we can have a better handle on funding. And then, of course, the construction, we're still to determine when the construction might happen. That's our presentation for today, so
Okay,
we're
Worth.
ready for questions.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, everybody. If you could go to page 11. So alternative 3, just when you're removing the loop accessing Interstate 264 going east, if you eliminate that loop going south on Independence, where's do you have to come down to Baxter and get on if you're coming south from, maybe this is too much stuff.
East to south?
That loop right there, what is replacing that?
Yes, so traffic would come south. Yeah,
So you go down to Baxter.
Go down to Baxter, turn left, and get onto the interstate that way.
And just a follow-up question on page 13. Who pays the difference?
That's to be determined.
Is not a big gap?
It is. It is. But we have to get here before we can get there.
Thought it was an obvious question. But
It is. It is.
I think that's why it's phased.
you're awesome.
Okay, we're gonna go with Josh, Michael, and Amelia.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for the presentation. There's a whole lot to unpack here, and I would love to, since we're seeing this for the first time right now, I would love to kind of have a moment and
Sure.
and present questions later. But just maybe some themes, I think, and I'm sure you probably have heard as much, like as you've gone through the engagement process and these iterations and alternatives. But I know one concern, generally speaking, is if we look to, say, Military Circle or Military Highway and Virginia Beach Boulevard, when you bring the road up, you kind of create dead corners and really difficult, if not non-navigable, pedestrian and other kind of connectivity opportunities. So I know that there was some concern about that. So and in that vein, I'm really interested on how and when it comes down to grade at Columbus and Cleveland, especially considering we've got a community priority before us with the Virginia Beach Trail. Right. And preserving access and opportunities going forward for cross connectivity in our city. So a lot to unpack. You don't have to answer any of it. The duration of construction, I'm sure, will be very long and painful. The timing of these phases, I'm sure, will be dependent upon funding and all of that. But opportunities for the public to engage and understand exactly what the movements will be. You've done a great job, and the HRBT. I mean, you can basically, there's 3D kind of renderings and videos would be really helpful. And that's it. I'm glad to see that it's a little less up in the air, literally speaking, than what the other alternatives I've seen before, because I think. There aren't very many, if any, opportunities to safely traverse from north to south and vice versa in our city, and the interstate has served as a barrier in that regard in many different respects. So preserving the connectivity north-south is really important.
Okay, Michael.
Thank you all. Thank you so much for being here and for this presentation. This is one of the I think, areas that is of the greatest interest to people who drive every day in Virginia Beach and use 264. And it's how I get to work every day. So it's of great interest to me as well. I really don't have a question about the different alternatives. Frankly, as Councilman Schulman mentioned, I've got a lot to sink in. There's a couple things I'm thinking about here.
Okay.
And maybe a little unconventional, but just bear with me, and maybe someone can get back to me, or we can talk later. But the first one is, you mentioned something about that one option will provide sidewalks where there aren't any. And I wonder if, as part of this process, we could look into greater detail about all of them could include sidewalks where they need to be, because this is one of the most dangerous areas of our city for pedestrians and bikers. You've heard me say this in the meetings before, that almost every time you open social media and see a news article, pedestrian struck, it's almost always within this vicinity. So I'm interested in including the possibility of including more pedestrian safety and bicycle safety aspects in all of them. Frankly, I think they should all be included. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, or something we can continue to work on and maybe include in the city's side of this as it moves forward. But this is a dangerous area for people that aren't driving. It's a dangerous area for people who are driving too. But it's really dangerous for people that aren't in the car.
Yeah.
That's question number one, or thought number one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, the sidewalks are definitely incorporated in this, and the continuous sidewalk was a very important part of including that in our preferred alternative. And there were sidewalks included in all three alternatives. It's, the assessment was more so like sidewalks that are crossing those loop ramps. The loop ramps are uncontrolled. And so that's where you can see a better safety benefit when you're removing those loop ramps, because the pedestrians they don't have to cross that uncontrolled loop ramp. So the final preferred alternative is the higher safety benefit for pedestrians crossing those, because the loop ramps and the weaving movements are removed from there. And yeah, sidewalk improvements they're critical for any of our alternatives. We consider the traffic, vehicles the same as, with pedestrians. Everybody needs to be able to have movements through there, and to be able to connect completely from Holland Road all the way to Town Center is really the intention, not just for vehicles, but also pedestrians.
If I may, Councilman, I'd just add one piece of information. Outside of this process, we are engaging with VDOT as part of our next round of Smart Scale to see if there's a possibility of doing a flyover, a bridge across 264. Now, I can't guarantee anything, but we are investigating that as part of our grant analysis. I know that was something that you've championed in the past.
That's a perfect segue to my number two.
I thought it might be.
Thank you. I know, it's amazing. Are you talking about the flyover that could potentially connect VB Trail, or a connection to the VB Trail with a connection to Mount Trashmore? Because that was my number two.
Yes, sir. I've heard you express that desire in the past, and that is an option that we will be pursuing in the next round of Smart Scale. Because this is a VDOT controlled corridor, it's something that we'll have to partner with VDOT on to determine whether or not that's possible. And that window's not open yet, so I don't have a lot of information. I just wanted to let you know that we hadn't forgotten that you'd asked about that. It is not, however, part of this particular process.
And I appreciate that, but that was what my curiosity is. Could be part of this process, or maybe it's concurrent or adjacent to this process. But people are excited about the VB Trail, and Mount Trashmore is our #1 most visited public space in the city of Virginia Beach. More than 1.6 million people visited last year, and there's festivals all the time, constantly happening. And I hear from people who live south. My district, people I serve live south of 264, so they're very concerned about a safe way to move across that interstate that doesn't involve a car. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Belushi is correct. Sometimes when you get off that interchange, you feel like you're on a figure-8 racetrack, you know, trying to get over on everything. And whoever designed that, I hope they enjoy their retirement. Okay, we're going to go with Amelia and then Stacy.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll look this way for this project area study. I'm the councilwoman where this comes to, for this report. And remember when I first came back on board, it was 400 and some million. So this was a shocker to suddenly see, 655. And I'm glad to also notice that besides this, one of the things you've mentioned is you do have starting funds through the HR tax. I did jot down a little bit about the congestion hotspot. Now, when I asked about this about 2 years ago, because people constantly ask about what's going to happen there, you mentioned about traffic volume. What have you estimated today? As far as total traffic? Yes, because each of those interchanges have different volume, and this is the largest. What are you all looking at?
I would have to get back to you on the exact traffic volumes for Independence Boulevard. The area, though, for Independence is growing. We have agreed upon a growth rate of 0.7% per year. And so that's higher than maybe the outlying areas that are growing closer to 0.5% a year. So Independence Boulevard itself and the areas off of Independence Boulevard were grown at a higher rate. And we can get back to you for sure on the traffic volumes.
Okay, thank you. And then on page 11, I jotted down about all 4 weaves eliminated. Can you speak a little bit more on that?
Oh, sure. The weaving movements are the movements to and from the loop ramps and the main line. So when you remove the loop ramps in the northeast and the southwest quadrant, basically if you're trying to get off, say you're traveling eastbound on 264 and you want to go north on Independence, you don't have to compete with that oncoming loop ramp. So you just get off on your own loop ramp. Then the same as when you go on that loop ramp and then you're traveling north on Independence, you don't have to compete with the other loop ramp that's in the northeast quadrant because all of that traffic is relocated. So
Because, people always have to be alert coming off that. I remember several years ago, a car went just straight over for the people.
ooh,
A couple of fractured bones, but they lived.
wow.
And yeah, because you're coming and others coming from this end and you're trying to make it in, and you curve to the right, and that's went over. You also mentioned about, I was happy to see about the sidewalk, because we still have people trying to walk under that
Yep.
along the side, and there's not, enough space for that. So you have it going on Independence from Holland to Town Center. Because Town Center, again, a lot of people come for the different events and so forth that happens in that area. So it's just as popular as Mount Rushmore for visitors, shoppers, and so forth, and the other events that we do. And I think the last one, we talked about that time delay savings. Can you just go over that one last time?
Sure. Do you want to go? Sure. Either of us could, but.
Yeah, so the time delays are based on modeling. So after we grow all that traffic and we put it in the future models, and in this case, we're looking at traffic we've projected out to 2052. So we take all of that traffic in the model, and that model tells us how much extra time it costs all of the vehicles together to get through that area. So every car that goes through and it gets stopped at a light, or it has to slow down because of merging traffic, or it's trying to get on a ramp that's got additional congestion on it, it calculates in the model all of that time. So we add all of that up together for all of the cars that are in the model, and then we compare that to the same model that projects what would happen if we didn't build anything. So we call that the no build. And we use the same traffic volumes and we just test it versus what's already there today. And so the difference in the time that the model tells us for the no build model and the new model with all the improvements, that's the amount of time that people save overall. Your time is money. And then we take that and we multiply it by the number of days per year and how often we expect that condition, and multiply it by an occupancy for the vehicles, because some people have, or some cars have more than one person in them. And then we multiply all of that by a dollar value. And when we do all of that, we get to $15 billion over 20 years.
Thank you. Last question. I know this is VDOT, but also VTA. Are you all working at all with them for informing people? The Virginia Transit Association? Are you all working in any way with that section as well?
We have not.
We've not.
We have not.
Okay, I'm president of VTA. That's why you're here.
Okay. Okay.
Consider it.
Absolutely.
Be good advocates for what you're moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, Stacy and Josh.
Thank you. Question about the cost and the financing of this whole thing. Do we have the costs broken down by phase?
We do.
Can we get that?
I can tell you what they are. They're, again, about a third of each other, but phase one was 241 million. Phase two was 179 million, and phase three was 247 million.
Now, the 207, is that all from Hampton Roads TSA? Is that all available for phase one? Or does that have to be broken down in some way?
I don't know how the funding, I don't know what the funding is. We've been told through VDOT and through HR Tech that that's how much they've identified. I don't know any more detail than that.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Cummings, so they're gonna have to take this to HR Tech and update them on these numbers, and then HR Tech is gonna determine if it fits or doesn't fit within their projected program for funding this project.
So is this a project that could be approved and move forward by phase? Or is this like, we have to identify the entire, we have to approve the entire thing at one time and come up with a funding for it all up front? Or can we start phase one and then worry about phase two in the future?
That's a VDOT question.
Yes. Phase one, each phase was determined so that it could be built on its own, so that what's left over that we haven't gotten to yet still functions. So when you come in and you do phase one, we showed that picture of phase one. When you build phase one, even though the rest of it is existing, there's still benefit to having just phase one, and it will integrate into the existing to provide a complete system.
And I'll add one thing to that. The IAR itself is for the whole project, and that needs to be approved by FHWA and VDOT for the whole project. So the interchange access report, the study that we're doing right now.
Okay, Josh.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'm sorry to take another bite at the apple here, but I think it's really, really, again, I'm just gonna stress it again, critical to think about the north half of this project, and especially considering the community priority investment we're making, and I'm sure you're aware of Virginia Beach Trail. I'm sure you're aware that we're contemplating a bridge over Independence.
Yes.
And then to be able to get that down to grade either before that happens.
Yep.
And then contemplating. I mean, I know the community spoke about the last iteration of what mass transit might look like in Virginia Beach, but there's hundreds of years in front of us or whatever that we may want to utilize that corridor in a more efficient way, and whether that's a train or a bus or Lime scooters for all that matter. I don't know, but I want to make sure that is a priority item that we're focused on that.
We did. We coordinated with city staff on that crossing in particular, that ped crossing in particular. to make sure that we weren't building anything that would preclude that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I've been on HR Tech, basically since I was elected in 2004. And back then, on the long distance radar was the Wichita 264 exchange, the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. And things have a way of getting done. We got the Greenwich flyover done. And, you can tell that, the Wichita, it took a long time to get there, but once it got there, it turned out to be pretty done. And then with the massive cost in the billions for the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, HR Tech can find a way. So what I'll do is every time I go to an HR Tech meeting, during council comments, I'll keep you up to speed. But based on my comments a couple of years ago with the representative from VDOT, they're giving this a priority. And I wish I could say that road projects didn't take decades. You can take a look at Centerville 3. Things take time, especially even with Laskin Road and, things of that nature. But the fact that it is on the radar and VDOT said they do consider this a priority. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some effort, but they also have a, history of getting things done. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so Mr. Mayor, members of council, the next presentation will be a briefing on the draft 2026 General Assembly legislative agenda for council's feedback and consideration. This is based on items that we've gotten from the departments, from feedback we received from individual members of council, and also from council during the retreat, as well as some additional items that we've gotten since we given you the packet, right? So the purpose of this is to start the process, and Brent will give you a timeline for the legislative agenda approval process. So go ahead, Brent, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, members of council, Mr. City Manager, and Mr. City Attorney. As the City Manager mentioned, I'm here to present this year's draft legislative agenda for the 2026 General Assembly session. Today, we'll provide a brief preview of the legislative session, go through our proposed timeline for adopting the legislative agenda, and walk you through the package. At the conclusion of today's presentation, we'll be looking for some guidance on 3 items. One, anything you'd like added, edited, or removed from the recommended package here today. We'll talk a little bit about some options on e-bikes, and we'll talk about our legislative reception a little bit. So the 2026 General Assembly session is what we call a long session. It'll be 60 days per the Virginia Constitution. It's the time when they'll build out the next biannual budget. Governor Youngkin will introduce his last budget on December 17th. Session begins on January 14th. Like I said, it should last about 60 days. Every now and then they finish a day or two early during budget season. Sometimes they finish late. We'll see how it all kind of shakes out. A lot of that will be impacted based on this year's elections. As you all know, all 3 of our statewide offices and all 100 seats in the Virginia House of Delegates are up for election. One thing we know for sure, a major theme of this legislative session will be the response to recent federal government actions, from federal employment loss to cuts to Medicaid and SNAP. How the state responds to that is really still kind of up in the air, but that will be a major theme. So our timeline, we are here today, September 23rd, presenting the draft agenda. October 7th, we will hold a public hearing on the legislative agenda and on a charter amendment that we'll talk about here in a moment. On October 14th, I'll come back before you just to get any last guidance from you, answer any questions you may have, and then we'll bring the package back to you on October 21st for your adoption. After that, we will go to work to get the legislation patroned by members of the General Assembly, introduced, and then hopefully passed. You will recall the city's policy on adopting the legislative agenda. To get something into the draft agenda, it's the same manner in which you get things onto your regular city council agenda. It takes either the sponsorship by the mayor or 3 members of council, or for it to come up through the city manager and the department directors. It takes 2/3 of the members to approve the legislative agenda and requires 3/4 of a majority of the council for any charter amendments. So the first section of the draft legislative agenda is our policy priorities section. This is a section that we added last year to provide us some authority to lobby on a kind of large set of issues. Most of these items are overarching themes, and some of them are specific items, as you will see. It's very similar to last year's. We've taken out some things that we accomplished last year, and then items that are new you'll see here kind of marked in red. So the first policy area is in affordable housing. Here you're going to see this recurring theme throughout the policy section of let local governments make their own land use decision. This is mentioned in here 3 or 4 times. It's a big issue that we're always discussing with the General Assembly. This year in the affordable housing section, we have added in support for the Virginia Housing Trust Fund, eviction reform, rental assistance programs, and first-time home buyer programs. These are all issues that we anticipate coming up. Second area is in economic development. Here we've added a clause showing support for the sports tourism grant program. You'll remember that this program got created last year, but they didn't fund it. This year, we're going to be going back to the General Assembly seeking funding for the program. Our education section is very similar to last year's, asking for greater support for our K-12 education. You'll recall they had that JLARC report that came out that showed that the state is grossly underfunding local schools, and they made a major investment last year based off of that report. We're really looking for them to continue that process. And then the second bullet here talks about the importance of investing in school construction, in particular, looking to dedicate a larger portion of those lottery funds towards school construction. The energy section, again, you'll see here, we're asking them to make sure that they leave land use policy to local governments. There's been a big push in the General Assembly the last 2 years, last couple of years, few years, to try to take some of those decisions out of local government hands, as there have been a bit of a struggle to get local governments to approve some renewable energy projects, especially on the solar side. So there's pent up frustration there that local governments and state government has been kind of butting heads on, but we'll continue to advocate for local government to have those that decision-making power. We also expect there to be a large discussion regarding just energy policy in general. There's a concern over how the Clean Economy Act, data centers, just the increased use in energy is impacting everybody's power bill, and how all those different policy elements intersect. And so we anticipate there's going to be a robust discussion about that this year. In the fiscal responsibility and budget impact section, you'll see here we added a clause dealing, as we talked about earlier, just asking the General Assembly to partner with local governments as they look for solutions into filling some of the gaps on the Medicaid cuts and SNAP cuts. We want to make sure that local governments are part of that conversation, and that those any of those fiscal impacts aren't just passed on to local governments. In addition, so we delivered this package to you guys on Friday. Since then, we had an additional request to add in this clause you'll see here at the bottom about maintaining the local option regarding collective bargaining for public sector employees. Again, wanting to retain that ability at the local level, not having it, depending on who's in the majority in the General Assembly and who's in the governor's mansion, this issue could go one of 2 ways. It could get rolled back to where you don't even have a local option, there's no option at all, or it could get further eroded in the manner of which taking local governments out of it in general. So this clause is just asking us to maintain the current process that we have. On flooding and stormwater, we are once again asking the General Assembly to develop a state funding program to support non-federal match requirements for federal grants. You'll remember last year we were successful in getting a study scheduled for this. Unfortunately, JLARC's schedule for kicking that study off has been kind of kicked down the road a little bit, down to 2026 or 2027. We're working to try and get that pulled back to being conducted sooner, but we all know that we need a state response to flooding issues. We've also added support for reforms to the Community Flood Preparedness Fund. This is the state's largest grant program for investing in flood protection projects. And so we're looking to try to make that more attractive for localities like Norfolk and Virginia Beach for our CSRM projects. Land use, as we've discussed, the major theme here is let local governments make their decisions. And then you'll also likely recognize from last year, preserving the local authority to regulate short-term rentals. On public safety, we've added a couple of clauses here. One, including the enabling the use of noise abatement devices. These are like the noise cameras that we had some discussion about a few weeks ago. So we included that here in the public policy section or public safety section. And then second, a recommendation from the Cannabis Advisory Commission where they would like to see some additional resources and education materials regarding intoxicating hemp products. And then our last policy section here is on transportation. This is very similar to last year. We're supporting funding for highway and secondary road funding, support for HRT, especially for microtransit, asking that BB Trail be included in any discussion about trail funding. And we have also included the request from the Active Transportation Committee regarding e-bikes, which you'll see here at the bottom in red. And we're going to discuss e-bikes a little bit more here later in the presentation. So this year's draft legislative agenda includes 1 charter request and 8 code amendments. So our first charter request is a request that came from Delegate Knight and Vice Mayor Wilson and was sponsored by Mayor Dyer as well. This idea here is that if there are any future changes, any future land use decisions south of the blue line, it would require 3/4 of the city council to approve that land use application. You can see here the recommended language for what would go into the charter is included there. So it would be section 2.03, and that's included in your package as well. You'll recall for charter amendments, it will take 3/4 of the council to approve this to end up in the final legislative agenda. And it also requires us to hold a separate public hearing for this separate from the legislative agenda. We can do it on the same night, but it'll be separate from the other public hearing.
Okay.
With all due respect to those of you who asked for this, I didn't and I don't, because I don't think this is actual protecting the blue line at all, and I think it's misleading. Actually, what we have now is a very hard stop, and our policy since it started was that, and this was has been Public Works, is that there won't be any water and sewer south of Indian River Road, and it's held. But this gives a path for allowing that to happen. It says, well, you could do it if you get a supermajority vote of council. And we saw that a supermajority vote of council didn't stop the green line from being broached. They got it easily. And I think the same thing would happen here. I think instead of a hard stop that says it won't go, now you've got a path to get it there. All you've got to do is get the same people who voted to break the green line to break the blue line, and the blue line is gone. So I think this is very misleading, and I just would not want people to think that it was any protection whatsoever. I am very concerned about the future of our Ag Reserve program, and I think this would, if people think that it's going to be this easy to keep going south, nobody's going to be willing to sell their development rights. We'd be stupid to do it. So I am very much opposed to this.
Okay. Okay, but, we'll have further discussions on this and, pending for, further, Michael?
In reference to Mrs. Henley's comments and the insight that she shared, I guess I just have a question about, a procedural question. Because as it stands now, it would, not that I'm advocating for this, I want to be very clear, but if a council member in the future wanted to extend those services below the blue line, it would require 6 votes, a regular majority, not a supermajority, correct? So the path already exists. So I think, and I know you understand it, Ms. Henley, I just want to make sure the public who's watching understands that my mind is very open on this. I'm not sitting here advocating for or against. I just want to be clear, the path to do it, the legal path to do it, already exists. This proposal would actually make it more difficult than it currently is.
Yes, Barbara?
Well, I think to this point, we've not even had anybody that's even thought about moving it too far because we've just had a hard stop. We've just said it can't be extended, and people have respected that. I think the green line is gone, the blue line is probably gone as well. I don't think there's too much in effect right now as it stands. But I don't think this is going to protect anything. And I don't want to give our people that illusion. And so I will not be supporting this.
Okay, thank you. Once again, this is just a presentation and, when it gets time to get to a decision point, once again, it's going to take, a supermajority to get it on, right?
That's right, Mr. Mayor.
Josh?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead and proceed.
As I mentioned, there we have 8 code amendments included in the draft legislative package this year. The first one is a repeat from last year. This proposed piece of legislation would basically allow local governments to notify an accommodations intermediary, which is like an Airbnb, and let them know that a listing that they have on their site is not properly permitted by the city, and to please remove it from their site. And the legislation would require them to remove it. Last year, we had some mechanical issues dealing with the legislation, just in how that process would work. And so we'll need to work with legislative services to get the language kind of tightened up and in a better place for this year if this is adopted by you, by the council. Our second amendment is a request from the fire department asking for the creation of a grant program to assist local governments with providing cancer screenings for public safety employees. Similar to the previous one, last year we had this recommendation. We were able to procure $200,000 from the state to help with providing cancer screenings for some of our employees, but now we're looking for more sustained funding for our public safety folks. EMS has requested legislation that would expand the category of allowed expenses from the 4 for Life program. Currently, $4 of every car registration is earmarked for EMS funding throughout the Commonwealth, but they restrict how those dollars can be used. Right now, it's restricted to just training or equipment. And then this legislation would seek to expand the use to maintenance of equipment, new facilities, vehicles, and other operating expenses. Similar to the EMS request, over the last couple of legislative sessions, the General Assembly has expanded the use of how fire program funds can be utilized. Now our fire department would like to see the next step taken and increase the funding. So today, the Virginia Fire Programs Fund is derived from 1% of fire-related insurance coverage, things like your car insurance, your home insurance, rental insurance, things like that. The contribution to the fund was last increased in the mid-90s, but as we all know, in that time, the expense of providing fire services has increased tremendously. Our fire department is asking for an increase to 1.5% or even 2%. Past 2 sessions, there's been an effort to do this by increasing it 0.25% a year for over a period of years, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. But that legislation has failed due to concerns over how this would impact people's insurance premiums. This next request was a request by many of the members on city council dealing with utility markings. I think we chatted a little bit about this, and so what I'm proposing is that we require the utilities to do spot marking in the tourist districts. Right now, they are required to use what they call spot marking in areas where the markings are considered to do damage to the property. So we would add tourism districts to the list that includes driveways, landscaping, and historic locations. Our next piece of legislation is a response to our challenges with the Marsh Terrace project in the Back Bay. What we're proposing here is basically to try and create a formula where you're measuring the environmental benefits of your project, and if the benefits outweigh the negative impacts, then it would require the VMRC to issue the permit for the project. We've been chatting with some of the environmental groups about this concept. There's some hesitation and concern about the precedent this sets. We've drafted it in a way where it would only impact our project. It wouldn't impact other people's projects, but once you do it for one, somebody will come back and ask for a similar request. So there is some hesitancy there, but we're continuing to have those discussions and hoping to gain their support. So many of those same environmental groups have reached out to members of the council asking for support of legislation that would call for a study of the impacts of menhaden fishing in the Chesapeake Bay. This is an issue that's been around for a long time. I've been active in the General Assembly since about 2006, 2007, and I can remember this issue being around then. There's a concern that the fishing of the menhaden is impacting the health of the bay and the wildlife that depend on the menhaden. So this request came from many of the members of the council here today. And what they're asking for is to undertake a multi-year study, and then during the study to put in some series of restrictions to keep the level of menhaden fishing down. Our last code amendment request came spurred from the discussions that we had with from Chief Newdigate and some of our oceanfront safety issues. This legislation mirrors some of the proposals that we've seen or legislation that's been adopted in Maryland, Washington, D.C., and in Florida. It would allow the chief, in coordination with the city manager and the mayor, to designate a special zone, I'm calling it a pop-up zone, for enhanced enforcement and mobilization when there is an unpermitted event where the crowd is expected to exceed 50 people. So we've built in some requirements on the localities. So the locality would be required to provide a minimum of 24 hours public notice before a pop-up event zone is activated, create and post a public information webpage with all the regulations that would be in place, post clearly visible signage at all entrances and exits, informing the public that the zone is active, that traffic violations carry heavier fines, and that there's enhanced enforcement. And if speed limits are reduced within the zone, additional signage should clearly indicate that the speed limit has been reduced. So those were some of the requirements on the locality. And then we have a section that would be some of the enhanced enforcement that would be available. So it would be enhanced traffic fines, temporary speed limit reductions. Localities can establish and enforce occupancy limits on both public and private property within the pop-up zone. We could try to recover costs from event organizers, and then institute a curfew for unaccompanied minors. Our next section is on budget requests. We have 5 this year for your consideration. First one is a request from the Virginia Beach Fire Department requesting $1.7 million for the Urban Search and Rescue Task Force. There's a growing concern that with the federal government looking at cuts to FEMA and reforms there, that some of these emergency response may fall back onto the localities. And so we're just looking for the state to help fill some of those gaps and start to make sure that they are aware of what's happening at the federal level here. Virginia Beach Police Department is requesting $1 million to support gun violence prevention. These funds would be used for programming like Parks After Dark or other programs, and to upgrade equipment needs that will support safety in neighborhoods. We have two requests dealing with the Virginia Aquarium. The first was one that the council brought up at the council retreat, seeking funding for the Stranding program. We've, having done a little bit of research, looks like the city spends about $450,000 on this program. We're just asking the state to split that at $250,000. And then the second request here is to support the aquarium's efforts for renovation and expansion. They're still kind of undergoing what that strategy is going to look like. We know from years past, they've asked for up to $10 million. So we've included that here in the package. And once we have a more clear direction on where they're going with that, we'll make sure to bring that back to you then. And then the last one, this one was added since you received your package on Friday, and I apologize for that. But this one, we're asking for support from the state to for the cost of renovating the courthouse office space for a new judge. So our last request here is a section we kind of have come up with. You know, over the last couple of years, we've talked a lot about trying to find state funding to cover a lot of the unfunded mandates that the federal and state governments place on us. And so over the last couple of years, local governments across the Commonwealth, we've kind of banded together and we've been lobbying for basically an annual earmark to try and cover some of this gap. And while we've made a little bit of progress on that and folks are listening, we've had no success in actually obtaining any of those dollars. I am proposing that we take it in a different direction, and instead of asking for an annual earmark that we'd have to go back every budget season and fight them for, especially during tough times and when they would rather spend the dollars in a different manner, is we're looking for a more sustainable funding stream, right? So we know over the last 2 years, there's been legislation that would institute a cannabis marketplace. That legislation has included about a 2.5% local tax. I'm proposing that we try to get that up to 5%. The numbers you see on this chart are statewide numbers, so a 2.5% local tax would create about $20 million Commonwealth-wide for localities. Obviously, 5% would be double that. Similar with skill games, the proposals have included, the way it's worded is they tax it at 15%, and then of that 15%, 15% would go to localities. And so using my iPhone, the math on that is about 2.25%. Somebody smarter than me could probably double check that. But that's about what I think it is. Again, if we could get that up to 5%, you're increasing the funding. There's a study going on right now dealing with iGaming, which are basically online casinos. And whether you're a proponent of that or not, if they're going to institute and allow online casinos, I would like to see there be a local tax included in that. There's clearly a local nexus and dealing with some of the social service and security issues. So I think we have a good argument to be made there. And then on the right side of the chart, these are some existing revenue streams where I would like to try to advocate for getting local governments kind of either injected or enhanced. The first one's online sports gambling. When they authorized that a few years ago, they didn't include a local government tax on that. It's taxed at the 15% level at the state, and 97.5% goes into, I'm pretty sure, the state general fund, and then like 2.5% goes into the problem gambling. So they didn't include local taxes in that. They're looking at daily fantasy sports, which are similar to online sports gambling, but they are today kind of categorized in a different way and taxed differently. And then our long-standing discussion on vaping and tobacco taxes, again, looking to advocate for local government to have the authority to tax vaping products. And there's a whole separate category of what they call other tobacco products that, again, don't have a local government tax on those either. And then the last item on that chart is modernizing the sales tax to include digital downloads and streaming. You'll likely recall 2 years ago, Governor Youngkin had proposed doing this. His proposal included expanding the sales tax and reducing the income tax. Our argument here is similar as to what I'm making with the iGames, right? If they're going to move in this direction, we want to make sure that local governments aren't left out in whatever process they move forward here. If they're going to modernize the tax code at the state level, then the local government should be included as well. So we have very clearly heard your concerns over e-bikes and safety issues regarding e-bikes. As I mentioned earlier, we've included the ATAC language in the policy section, and we're still kind of looking into this issue. And so we're going to be bringing a separate presentation to you here in a couple weeks and a couple meetings that has some information on existing authority, some things that are in our local code that you may want to take a look at. And I think once you get that update, we can see which direction you guys want to take, whether that's seeking additional authority or changing the authority that we have from the General Assembly, or using the authority that we have this year and then maybe seeking a change next year. But I think that conversation is fairly robust and will provide some clarity for you guys. So we'll have additional discussions on this in the future.
Yeah, Stacy?
On that issue, I hear what you're saying. I just want everyone to appreciate how big of an issue this is. It's like the number one issue I'm getting from constituents, and it's becoming more and more of a problem every day. And our local people, our police chief, is telling us that this is a state issue, and it seriously needs to be addressed. It's out of control today, and if it continues to proliferate like it is, by next year it's going to be even more uncontrollable. So I just ask that we take this very seriously.
And Councilman, I think you will see that we're bringing an entire separate presentation to you that will, we're still looking into it, but there are areas that the state has given us some authority today that we're not currently utilizing. And I think that discussion will help us kind of move this in that direction.
Patrick?
Yes. Mr. Mayor, members of council, what we found is that there's additional authority that's granted the city that the city council would have to opt into that could allow us to further regulate it. Our goal would be to brief you all on what the existing authorization is that council's already authorized, then let you all know about this additional authorization that you could authorize, and let you know the process for how you could limit that e-bikes based on different classes throughout the city, and to get your feedback on how you want to go on that. The requirements from the state law for some of those is that if you want to make an amendments to some of the classes, you have to do a public hearing process first. So we want to brief you on some options and then get your okay on how you want us to proceed. It could mean that you decide to take advantage of that local authority in lieu of asking the state for additional authority. But the local authority will allow you to restrict the place of how where these bikes are able to navigate in a significant way that I think may meet the aims of some of the members on council.
Okay, that's good. Anybody else on this? This is an important one.
Yes, sir. And then finally, so we have our annual legislative agenda or legislative reception planned. I previously surveyed the council for some proposed dates. We checked around some of the General Assembly members and some of the General Assembly calendars to try and avoid any of the major meetings and events coming up, and then I didn't. So I apologize for that. So the Senate Finance Retreat starts the day after our reception, but there are some events that are being added for that day that they just weren't published, or that when I talked to General Assembly members weren't aware of. So now our choice is either we can keep the date, but our state senators wouldn't be able to attend, or you have a new survey in your package today for a few other choices of a date. So you will see on there 4 choices. One of them is we can keep it as it is, and that's no problem, or you can give me your availability for 3 other date choices, and we can move it into December. I apologize for that. I'm honestly embarrassed that I've made this mistake 2 years in a row. So third time will be a charm, I promise. But sometimes the realities are what they are. And so we're going to resurvey you guys on the legislative reception, and we will do our best to get that fixed. Again, I apologize for the mistake.
No, but Brett, we sense your frustration and it's tough. That you might just be prudent to wait until after the election. Given, the fact that may be some changes or status quo, we won't know until then. And all the members of the General Assembly are preoccupied right now.
That is true. Yes, sir. So that concludes my presentation. As I mentioned at the beginning, we were looking for any guidance you may have on issues you would like added, changed, or removed. We talked a little bit about our e-bike plan, if there's additional feedback there. And then, as I mentioned, our legislative reception and surveying your availability for that. So, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. Yep. Worth.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer. Thank you, Mr. McKenzie, for the presentation. Just 2 quick questions, I think. On pop-up event zones requests, are we going to collaborate with other localities on that to get more oomph for that, or others interested in the same type of?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, so the mayor is hosting the mayors of the 7 cities, I think next week. And we're going to give them a similar presentation that we gave the council and that we gave our stakeholder groups. The mayors talk to them individually to garner their support. So the intent would be to see if they'll be interested in either carrying something in their city's legislative package similar to this, or the mayors doing something together. Mayor, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
No, but once again, public safety is, doesn't cross, it crosses borders. And, once again, I think if we go in there unified, the hopes is that, if we're a single ask of one city, but I think if we have more cities, it would be, more compelling to the General Assembly. But be assured that all the mayors in the 757 share our concerns, and we're all getting along, we're working together, and let's talk about it, because public safety is the one thing, one of our top priorities.
And just a follow-up question on the City of Virginia Beach budget requests. The $250,000 request for both the aquarium and the city manager's office. Should we ask for more? I know we settled on 250. I don't know how we got to 250, but is on both is that enough for both, or is that just something we hope we can get? Because should we ask for 500 and settle for 250?
Are you talking for the courthouse?
For both courthouse and the aquarium.
The courthouse, the state's already covering 250 of it, which is, I think it was $450,000 the cost of the project. They know the cost of the project. So if we were to ask them for that, I don't know if they'll actually acquiesce to giving us more than that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. The one for the aquarium, council could ask us to ask for the full $450,000, just assuming the fact that the Stratton program does hit the entire East Coast. Good portion of it happens in Virginia Beach, so we figured this is a starting point. If council wants to ask for 400 or 450, we certainly can.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about that because, I'll tell you what, these are a pretty heavy ask, and every city is going to be asking for a heavy ask. So, I think it's prudent to be reasonable. Anybody else? All right, Josh.
Thank you, Mayor. I was really pleased to see, thank you for going after those the lost tobacco revenue through the vape funds and the vape tax, hopefully that they can figure out a way to do. And, it's funny when it's not funny, it's actually dangerous and horrible, because when Councilmember Cummings first mentioned the e-bike issue a couple of weeks ago, I was driving back to my house after a council meeting on Nemo Parkway out here, and I was doing 45 miles an hour, and somebody was literally keeping pace with me on the shared use path on the side. So, and there were pedestrians present and a child and everything. So, I agree that it's certainly a priority. So, one thing I just wanted to bring up, and I'm only doing it because I'm just seeing it now, and it wasn't included in what we received on Friday, was the collective bargaining issue, and how we're, I guess, requesting that it not be, that the local option not be removed. And I remember living that a little while ago, and with the prior council, and I think it was kind of a asked and answered kind of issue, and I was really and have been looking forward to and enjoyed moving on into things that we can coalesce around and agree upon, because it's it's kind of a divisive issue, unfortunately, but one we've seen passed, and anybody who might have even supported that issue, I don't think would have been supportive of the notion of a blank check, so to speak. So I think that issue might be covered by that third bullet in that slide, if you go back to it, with hey, let's not ask for unfunded mandates. And I'd probably support the language and the notion that a local option be preserved. But I just think of some of the unintended consequences that something like that kind of an ask might entail. And I'm also thinking about a General Assembly who, if they were really going to do something like that, they wouldn't really care if we asked them to do it or not. So, my thought is, why poke at the issue? And if other localities are doing the same, maybe I guess like that'd be good information to have, but I just don't think it's a productive ad.
Okay, Michael, and then Rosemary.
Well, respectfully, I completely disagree with you. I think it's a very important and productive ad. We know that conversations about the imposition of collecting bargain on municipalities will likely be considered as part of the debate that occurs at the General Assembly in the upcoming session. And I think it's vitally important that the city of Virginia Beach retain that control. And that's where we're stopping. I don't think it's a divisive ask at all. I think it's just as we're asking that localities maintain control over short-term rentals, just like we're asking that localities maintain control, as Mr. McKenzie pointed out, over land use decisions related to affordable housing. We have a fiduciary responsibility to the people we serve and the citizens we serve. And it is, I'm sorry to say that this issue can divide people unnecessarily, doesn't have to, and I can certainly appreciate and respect your desire to avoid issues that are divisive. But the reality is that we're in a public service position, and there are going to be issues that people disagree on. And that's why this request stops short of taking a position on collective bargaining. Just simply asked that the state not impose that burden on us. And it does so specifically because it will come up. It's been an issue in the gubernatorial campaign, the campaigns for lieutenant governor, and certainly in many General Assembly races. I think this is an appropriate and ask, and I hope that it's one that we can coalesce around as local representatives, municipal representatives, those of our neighborhoods, that we can all agree that maintaining that local option on a variety of issues is important to us.
Okay, Rosemary.
I totally agree with Michael. And spending a lot of time with the Virginia Municipal League, they were always saying, let us decide. The localities know best. We know what's best for our citizens, not everything that's going on in Richmond. And this puts Brent and whoever else is lobbying in Richmond in a better position if he knows what we're asking for. When they go to him and say, well, what does Virginia Beach want? And if we haven't taken a position, and I think it's a very safe position, we just want to be able to let us decide, not for Richmond to decide and shove down whatever they want to do down our throats. Let us decide. And, we faced this before, and we could have to face it again, but let it be our decision and not somebody that lives in Roanoke to decide whether we're going to do this or not. So I think it's important for us to state how we feel, because it's going to come up, and I don't think we can just totally avoid it like it's not there.
Okay, then we're going to go Stacy and Hutch.
I'll just add on respectfully. When you say that we thought this was a settled issue, quite frankly, I thought it was a settled issue also. I thought it was left up to the localities. And as long as it's left up to the localities, then we're fine with that. To have, again, agreeing with Council Vice Mayor, to have someone else make decisions for Virginia Beach, and to give that up, or to not even object to having someone else make decisions that affect this city, it's just a position I don't think we should take. I think we should protect whatever the issue is. I think we should protect our ability to make decisions for our citizens based upon their input, not based upon what people in Richmond or Northern Virginia think about an issue.
Okay, Hutch?
So I'm taking a little different tack. So this is the first I heard of it. We've talked about a lot of things. There was nothing else in this packet, and I think Patrick will back me up on this. I read everything we get. So I didn't see it on there. It just showed up today in gold as opposed to another color.
More of an orange, but.
Yeah. Well, it's not gold as in money's coming here, right? But so last year, we thought the 10-1 was going through, and at this very moment, at this very table, at this very presentation is when some of us found out that it wasn't going to be supported. Mayor, you talk about the table and us being very in sync in most things. I'd say 90% we are. But when I was at the fire department table and I sat down here and there was 9 of us, you wouldn't have a surprise like this 2 years in a row. So quite frankly, I'm bothered by it. Not saying I couldn't have got behind it or anything else. I'm also going to take another little divergent path, is in that we did do very well by the employees the last year. And I think if we continue to do that, this becomes a moot point because they have to have so many signatures and it wouldn't happen anyway. So we did very well last year, but we have to continue that. We're Virginia Beach. I've stated it very, very clearly that everybody, educators, public works, public utilities, firefighters, police, everybody should be at the top of the scale. So when we show that after a couple, 3 years, then that will go away. And if we keep it there, it keeps us honest in doing that. So for those 2 reasons, I don't support that being there. Thanks.
You know, Hutch, trust me when I say I respect your opinion. But, one of the problems that I've had with Richmond, and, there are some people in Richmond just have a culture of arrogance and they impose things on us. They imposed a 10-1 on us. I was never notified about it until after the vote and things of that nature. But once again, I think we had a process, with all due respect, that I think Brett brought up in the beginning, that any council member could do an add-on. Whether, asking me to sponsor it or 3 people to do it. And whether we like it or not, this is at the forefront of the upcoming election. This is a major discussion, and one way or the other, we're going to go one way or the other. Now, Brett, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't the legislature pass a number of things that would have imposed things on us, including constitutional officers? But it got vetoed. Is that correct?
This legislation that we're discussing here specifically has passed the General Assembly the last 2 years through a Democratic majority and was vetoed by Governor Youngkin.
Yeah. So, but once again, it's the type of thing that, my fear is, and I'm being honest with you, Hutch, you and I can sit down, we can talk about it at length over breakfast. But this is yet another unfunded mandate. I believe Fairfax County, passed collective bargaining, and I think their delta was $300 million, and, things of that nature. And, whether we like it or not, and maybe if in fact we are looking at potential of 5 bargaining units right now, and then if we go with the constitutional officers, we may be looking at potentially up to 10 bargaining units, maybe all different payroll systems, maybe all different, you're gonna need attorneys for each and every one of them. And the point is that we have the potential of being confrontational. Because, some of the unions are, Patrick tells a story about what happened in Cincinnati, where unions don't want to do it. And you can't really say right now, oh, but public employees can't strike. That could change with an administration. And we take a look, and I remember living in New Jersey when they had the garbage strike up there. So once again, I think it's a very tough emotional issue right now. But all we're asking for is, hey, let us decide and have the discussions. But I'll tell you what, once again, this is just the initial go through. And don't forget, we're going to have a final vote on it, and we're going to need, we'll be getting people's input. Okay. But Hutch, you and I have breakfast.
So I just want to be clear, though, is that there will be a vote on that one sentence at some point. That's all I want.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll have a lot of time to debate it. I cannot imagine a scenario, and I have a lot of respect for your perspective, but I cannot imagine a scenario when anyone, especially anyone who serves in local government, would oppose the preservation of the right to decide for our own community.
Yeah.
Sorry, for being the person that brought it up. What my issue with it was, and if you don't mind going back to the slides, sorry about that, is that I think it's covered by bullet 3. And there are so many other things that we could say we don't want the General Assembly to do, and that would cost us money and take undue time, effort, expense, and otherwise. But I mean, to call out the one issue that we've kind of asked and answered, I don't think is a productive kind of thing to be doing.
Stacy, then Michael.
Again, respectfully, if it wasn't such a big issue with such dire consequences, we would not be having this discussion.
Hey, Michael, and then.
Well, if you could go back to the time, first of all, I don't think it's covered under bullet 3. I think it's an important enough an issue. And I think that the people I talk to, the citizens of Virginia, pro and against, agree that it's an important enough issue to have its own call out. If you go to the timeline, there's lots of opportunities for continued public engagement on this issue. So this is not, what is it, September 23rd? We're not voting for a month. So lots of opportunity for continued engagement. But it hasn't, and I just don't agree that it's been asked and answered. There's local organizations within Virginia Beach that continue to advocate pro and against the adoption of the policy. As I mentioned before, it's an issue in the governor's campaign that's happening this fall. It's an issue in many, if not most, of the General Assembly campaigns. And we know that there is a push to impose the collective bargaining across the Commonwealth. And we know there's people who strongly oppose it. I think the question has been anything but asked and answered. And so that's why I think it's important that we do this. And again, we're not taking a position on the issue here. All we're doing, and I want to be exceedingly clear with it, all we're doing is asking to preserve the local option to make the decision right here at home. Simple as that.
Yeah, I'm thankful for the conversation. Coming into it, I like what Chief Hutch said, that we have shown that we care about our fire department. We've shown that. My concern is that I don't like the fact when someone imposes something on us. We are a local body that have done well with our police department, our fire department, and I think we've shown that. And so giving up authority to a general assembly that sometimes I don't even get a phone call from them. That part. And so with that being said, we have to maintain our integrity to manage our affairs in which we've shown we do well. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, let me just say this, I think once again, I think we proved that, this current body of elected people can have a rational conversation at a good tone and get to know where each other's coming from. But don't forget, this is only an intro. And we're gonna mash this through, and, you know, eventually we'll get it to where we need it to be. I got confidence in that. Brett, thank you for your work.
Thank you, sir.
Rosemary?
I want to say something about the charter amendment, which I have brought up at College Street. It's certainly not meant to be a path for more development. I mean, anybody can think that, it's just beyond me. There's a big difference between the green line and the blue line. And there's a lot of misunderstandings in the general public about those two. Most people don't even know about the blue line. And the blue line is demarcation. That is our agriculture, our rural area. We're not going to put city services down there. Yes, Ms. Henley says a hard stop. It's meant to be a hard stop, and we want to keep it that way. The green line, that's a transition area. It was never meant to be no development whatsoever. It's supposed to be transitioning down there. And there's a lot of misinformation. People are thinking that nothing is supposed to happen. Well, we're sitting below the green line right now, and there's lots of houses and Harris Teeter and shopping centers and all that. So it's not an area that is no development. But the blue line is where we really want to stop this. And, you know, Delegate Knight and I talked about it, and we thought this would be a great way to show the public how important that agricultural area is. And as Michael pointed out, 9 votes is a whole lot different than 6 votes. And I have sat here in council and I've heard people say they'd like to develop all the way down the North Carolina line. Well, you get 5 friends, you could do that. That could change. Yeah, we could pay to have utilities put in, water, sewer, and all of that. But with 9 votes, it's going to make it a whole lot harder. And this is only to protect our rural agricultural area. So I'm really baffled to think that anyone would believe that was a path for development when you want to make it harder. This is to make it harder. So I think it would be a good thing, and it's a good sign to the ARP and and all the folks down there that we want to protect the farmland and that agricultural area. So I just want to I'm sorry Ms. Henley left, but have a moment to speak to that, and also for the public to understand the reasoning behind it.
Okay, Hush, and then Stacy.
Well, yeah, and I'm really going to say a lot of what the vice mayor said. From my understanding, I mean, Mr. Knight is a delegate from down there, and so if he feels it's a good idea, it kind of puts us in a bad spot. Is that with Ms. Henley being so vehemently opposed, but Mr. Delegate Knight, the right way to say it, is he's been there a long time too, and he, you know, so if he's supporting this, and I'm with the vice mayor. When we were approached with this, you know, I always say the blinking light, the Pungo light. You know, we're not headed down there. Right up here along Prince Anne Road is the transition area. That's what we've said. But I think a lot of times people think, and this is my diner stuff, you know, and it's like they think we're talking about building at the Pungo light, and I tell them, Mr. Manager, it's $500,000 for a half a mile or something like that, a road. So it's like, we're not headed to the Pungo light. We can't. You know, I know anything can happen in 25, 30 years. I mean, that's part of the whole thing to me about a plan. You know, a plan is good for a couple years and it's got to be adaptable. So that feels like what we're doing, but we're not advocating to move down there and making the votes harder. And I heard what Ms. Henley said, and like you said, I wish she was still sitting here, is that we are guaranteeing, because whether it felt like that could be not voted or whatever, if there was a pot of money found, they could get 6 votes and we could do stuff down there. Now we're making it harder with the delegates helping to do this. It sounds like the right plan to me. So that was why I was a little befuddled myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Archie. Stacy.
Just to be clear on something the vice mayor said, I've not heard anyone at this table advocate building all the way down to North Carolina. This table.
I've never been to a number of tables before.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have several county friends too that I've talked about this, and they are thrilled that we are considering this. And I'm
I'll tell
talking
you what,
6 or 7 of them, not just one. As soon as I start talking about this, they were like, no, that's a great idea, because that guarantees our way of life, was exactly what one of them said.
Yeah, you inspire Hutch me to say this, we're putting up a firewall.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Yeah, I was reading in the packet from Friday and on this item, and I didn't realize the green line is it's I guess a defined term in our planning documents, right? So, but the blue line isn't. It was a public works administrative or public utilities concept. So, I mean, I think it's very, very important, and probably in many ways even more important. And it's a good signal, I think, to folks that what our intention is not to do things to make things worse by any means.
Okay, good discussion. Brent, thank you. That took you folks a lot of hard work. Andrew, thank you too.
Thank you. We appreciate your time.
it. All right.
All right, so Mr. Mayor, members of council, at this time, we'll get our typical update on the pending planning items that'll come before you at future council meetings. The presentation will be given by Caitlin Alcott, and it'll be for the October 7th and October 21st council meetings.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of council. As the city manager just said, I'm here to brief you on the planning items on both your October 7th and October 21st council agendas. Looking first at the October 7th agenda, there are a total of 11 items for consideration, a couple of which include multiple requests within one project. So the first two items include a request for a subdivision variance as well as a conditional rezoning for the parcel directly southwest of 5945 Burton Station Road in District 4. The parcel lies on the Norfolk border and it's immediately adjacent to the Norfolk Premium Outlets. The applicant is requesting to rezone the subject parcel from I-1 Light Industrial to conditional A36 Apartment District in order to construct a multifamily development. Since the site does not have direct access from a public street, a subdivision variance for lot width and street line frontage is required. The parcel is currently undeveloped, mostly wooded, and lies within the Burton Station SGA. The proposed development includes a total of 180 multifamily units, which equates to a density of 28.75 units per acre. A private access easement will be established to allow access to the subject parcel through Premium Outlets Boulevard and the adjacent parking lot. Stormwater for the development is proposed to be handled with a regional BMP expected to be installed on the parcel immediately to the south of the site, which is owned by Norfolk Economic Development Authority. The applicant is aware that if this request is approved, they cannot receive site plan approval until all stormwater requirements are satisfactorily met. All required parking and landscaping is met on site to include additional landscaping and fencing along the entire perimeter. A total of 4 four-story buildings with a maximum height of 58 feet 2 inches and a clubhouse are proposed as seen on the renderings on the slide. Although the applicant is not requesting to establish a workforce housing overlay with this request, nor have they included a proffer, they have stated it is their intent to set rents consistent with established affordability standards for workforce housing in the city. Staff is unaware of any opposition to this request, and the Planning Commission voted to recommend approval on their consent agenda. The next two items include a modification of proffers and a conditional use permit for an outdoor recreational facility for the parcel east of 3072 Signature Circle in District 2. The applicant is proposing to develop 2 pickleball courts on a parcel originally intended for a multi-purpose building as shown on the 2004 proffered plan. The courts would be private and for the exclusive use of the residents of the villages at West Neck. While the applicant anticipates that many residents will walk or ride their bikes to the court, vehicle parking will be provided at the West Neck Community Hall located west of the proposed courts. Although the site is located within the transition area, the applicant opted not to present the proposal to the Transition Area Interfacility Traffic Area Citizens Advisory Committee, or TAITA-CAC, since the courts are solely for the use of residents at the villages of West Neck, as I previously stated. The Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval of the request with an added condition that would limit the hours for the courts to 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Item 5 is a conditional use permit request for an automobile repair garage at 5773 Arrowhead Drive, Suite 107 in District 1. The applicant intends to provide general automotive services within an existing suite on the site. The hours of operation are 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Adequate parking is provided on the site for the use, and no exterior changes are proposed with the exception of a sign to be installed on the suite door. Since the property is located within the Newtown Strategic Growth Area, staff is recommending a 5-year expiration should the CUP be approved. Staff has not received any opposition to this request, and the Planning Commission did recommend approval by consent. Item 6 is a conditional use permit request for a religious use located at 5263 Greenwich Road in District 1. The applicant is seeking approval to construct a 10,500 square foot, 200-seat sanctuary with a 1,500 square foot covered pavilion. As the site is just over 1.5 acres, the applicant is requesting a deviation to the 3-acre minimum lot area required for religious uses in our ordinance. It is the intent to reuse the existing parking lot on the site to satisfy the parking requirement for the church. The 2.5-story building will have a maximum height of 40 feet and will have proposed hours of operation of 10 a.m. to noon on Sundays and then 7:30 p.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. on Wednesdays. Although a commercial entrance would typically be required to support the proposed use, due to site constraints, the typical entrance design cannot be achieved and therefore will require a Public Works variance. Based on discussions between planning staff as well as staff with Public Works and the applicant, Public Works does not foresee any issue in granting that variance should this request be approved. 3 speakers spoke in support at the Planning Commission hearing, and staff is unaware of any opposition. Ultimately, the Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval with an additional condition that a 5-foot wide sidewalk be installed west of the entrance with an ADA compliant ramp. Item 7 is a conditional use permit request for alternative residential development at 1524 Gumbridge Road in District 2. Section 405 of the zoning ordinance allows the City Council to permit residential density in the southern part of the city at a density that is greater than what is allowed by right. This allowable density is based on the suitability of the soils on the property, with well-drained or moderately drained soils permitted a density of 1 unit per 5 acres, and then poorly, somewhat poorly soils allowed a density of 1 unit per 10 acres. The applicant seeks to create 2 parcels. The first, referred to as parcel A1, which is shown in the pink color on the slide, will be approximately 37.5 acres and will be retained by the applicant. And the second, referred to as parcel A2, which is shown in green, will be 10 acres and will be sold if this request is approved. The eastern 14 acres of this site are located within the AE flood zone as well as the floodplain subject to special restrictions, and as such, that area could not be used when calculating the allowable density. Based on the soil types on the site, a maximum of 2 dwelling units are permitted. While elevations were not provided with this request, the applicant has indicated that each dwelling will be approximately 4,800 square feet in size. And then to ensure that the rural character of the area is preserved, staff is recommending a condition that would require any future home to adhere to the rural area design guidelines for single-family dwellings. Staff is unaware of any opposition, and this item was recommended for approval on consent. Item 8 is another conditional use permit request, this one for an outdoor recreational facility at 5917 Blackwater Road, again in District 2. More specifically, the applicant intends to operate a dirt bike track and training facility on the parcel, which was originally created as a part of an alternative residential development CUP in 2009. As a part of that 2009 approval, the rear portion of the property was subject to an agricultural use easement, which limited use of that area to agricultural or passive open space uses. Many of the conditions of approval recommended by staff are shown on the slide here. I do want to note a couple of the conditions, but I won't go through the entire list. So a few to make note of. 1, staff was recommending a limit of no more than 12 one-day camps per year, a limit of 1 individual or small group lessons per week with no more than 3 children, limiting the hours of operation to 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and then a requirement to install a concrete apron as required by the Public Works Design Standards Manual. At the Planning Commission hearing, the commission recommended approval of the request. However, they did modify several of those conditions. The first modification being that no more than 20 one-day camps would be permitted, that 2 individual or small group lessons would be permitted with up to 5 children per week. They also removed the condition to require the installation of the concrete apron. I do want to note that if this is approved with those recommended conditions, the removal of that condition for the concrete apron would require a Public Works variance be granted. Staff received 22 letters of support, 1 petition of support with 172 signatures, and then there were 2 speakers in support at the Planning Commission hearing. Conversely, we received 2 letters of opposition, as well as 1 speaker in opposition at the hearing. And as I mentioned, Planning Commission did recommend approval with those modified conditions by an 8-1 vote. Item 9 is a CUP request for a firewood preparation facility for the parcel directly southeast of 1625 Indian River Road, still within District 2. A notice of violation was issued in January of this year for operation without a conditional use permit, after which the applicant filed this application. The applicant intends to operate from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on a daily basis. The applicant has indicated that they only intend to operate the facility while cleaning up the site. As such, staff is recommending a 1-year limitation if the CUP is approved, after which the site should be replanted. Staff is unaware of any opposition to the request, and the Planning Commission voted 10-0 to recommend approval. Again, this one with an added condition that no off-site material should be brought on-site for processing. Item 10 is a CUP request for a home-based wildlife rehabilitation center at 709 DeLaura Lane in District 9. The applicant is proposing to provide care to small mammals within a room of an existing single-family dwelling. No more than 10 animals will be on site at any given time. The applicant is licensed with the Department of Wildlife Resources and will only receive animals from a parent organization. No animals will be brought on site from any members of the public.
Josh?
Just out of curiosity.
Think squirrels, possums, several different varieties of squirrels. Generally, she said under like 10 pounds or less.
Okay, I'll have to watch it. Thank you.
Yeah, we did reach out to the applicant and to DWR to see if there was any definition of small mammal. There really wasn't anything, but the license with DWR is for specific animals. I can get you the specifics.
I'll dig into it a little bit. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Once the animals are weaned from formula, they will be transferred to a secondary facility, so no animals will be released into the wild from this site. We have not received any opposition to this request, and the Planning Commission did recommend approval on consent. The final item on your October 7th agenda is a CUP for a short-term rental at 516 22nd Street, Unit 300 within District 6. This is a 4-bedroom unit and can accommodate 2 parking spaces on site. The applicant has also submitted an intent to lease off-site parking agreement for 2 spaces within the 25th Street Municipal Parking Garage, and you can see both the straight line and driving distance on the map there. There are no prior zoning complaints, nor is the subject site currently advertised. We have not received any opposition to this request, and the Planning Commission did recommend approval on consent. Moving on to your October 21st agenda, there are a total of 6 planning items. Item 1 is a modification of conditions request for 2244 and 2252 Indian River Road in District 2. A conditional use permit for assembly use was approved in 2016 for the operation of an event venue on the site. The applicant is now seeking a modification to allow for the construction of a 3,080 square foot greenhouse. That proposed greenhouse will replace an existing pole barn on the site and will be constructed within the same footprint. Events for the venue will either occur outdoors behind the residence or within that event space. Adequate spaces provided on site for parking. Staff has recommended a couple changes to the conditions. One, that no amplified music be allowed outside between 10 p.m. and noon, and then no event shall be held between the hours of 11 p.m. and 9 a.m. The applicant did indicate that weddings are their primary event, but they do host baby showers, reception lunches that typically happen earlier in the day than your typical wedding. The renderings on the slide here show the proposed greenhouse. In addition to being used for an event space, the applicant has indicated that they intend to grow fruits and vegetables and raise quail, which will also be done within that greenhouse. Since the site is located within the transition area, the applicant did present to the TA-ITA-CAC in August of this year and did receive support from that group. We did have one speaker at the Planning Commission hearing. It was an adjacent neighbor. They were not opposed to the application. However, they did ask to be notified of events in advance so they can kind of plan accordingly. Planning Commission did recommend approval by an 8-1 vote with the added condition that monthly notification of upcoming events be provided to all property owners within 1/8 of a mile. Item 2 is a modification of conditions request for 3909 Virginia Beach Boulevard in District 4. A conditional use permit for motor vehicle sales was granted in 1987. The applicant now seeks to demolish the existing buildings on the site and construct a new car dealership. A total of 108 parking spaces are proposed, 63 of which will be used for inventory display. Additionally, one vertical storage unit, which can hold 9 vehicles, will be proposed behind the building at the rear of the site. You can kind of see it in that light blue rectangle on the slide. Sidewalk and crosswalk improvements are proposed to provide connectivity to a parcel southwest of this site, which is used as a maintenance and service facility for the dealership. A vinyl privacy fence is proposed along the rear property line, which is planned north to the plan shown on the slide there. That green strip at the top is the phase 2 of the future VB trail, so that fencing is proposed to provide some buffering from this site to the trail. The applicant is also proposing landscaping within the trail right-of-way, but abutting the property line of this site to provide further buffering. That will be subject to approval of an encroachment agreement by this body. The renderings on the slide here show the proposed building, which will be a maximum height of 30 feet. This site is located within the Rosemont SGA, and while the use does not align with the recommendations of the plan, the current design is more consistent with the recommendations for the SGA than what exists today. Staff has not received any opposition to this request, and the Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval on consent.
Thank you, Stacy.
Just full disclosure, I have absolutely no financial interest as we speak in this project or in priority, but I think technically I'm still an officer of the company, which I've cleaned that up. That's just a cleanup issue through resignation, but I've had no say, no financial interest, but I am the trustee of one of the applicants, so I won't, be involved in the decision process, and I just wanted to let everyone know of that interest.
Yes, you have anything?
Yeah, I think it's important for me to say as well, I'm no longer employed by Priority Lexus, and so I have no ties to the company.
Okay.
Right. Item 3 is a CUP request for a bulk storage yard for 3 parcels along Virginia Beach Boulevard within District 4. The site lies within the Rosemont SGA and is intended to store vehicle inventory and provide employee parking for the auto dealership that was discussed with the previous request. There are 2 existing billboards on the site which are proposed to remain. Aluminum fencing and landscaping are proposed around the entire perimeter of the site, with additional landscaping proposed within the future VB Trail right-of-way, which is just to the north. And again, that will be subject to approval of an encroachment agreement by this body. There was one speaker in opposition to the request at the Planning Commission hearing who noted concerns with incompatibility of the use adjacent to the VB Trail. While staff is recommending denial of this request due to that incompatibility and the fact that this is a vacant parcel, the Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval by 6-3 with an added condition reaffirming the need for an improved encroachment agreement for the landscaping that is proposed within the VB Trail right-of-way.
Okay, Stacy and then Amelia.
Again, I have no financial interest in this at all, but I was the signature on the original contract to purchase this property, and it has since been transferred to another one of the Elmer entities that I have absolutely no interest in. But again, I am trustee to the applicant of this project and will abstain from any votes or voice.
Okay, Amelia?
I've been and reviewed all of that area, so I was comfortable with what's going on there, out of my district.
Thank you.
Right, item 4 is another CUP request for a bulk storage yard, this one at 2008 Hudome Way in District 2. The bulk storage yard will be used for the storage of acoustical dampening generator enclosures as well as other materials stored rotationally as a part of the manufacturing process. While bulk storage yards are required to be enclosed on all sides by a privacy fence and landscaping, the applicant is requesting a deviation to this requirement to allow portions of the bulk storage yard to be screened by the proposed building and/or the fencing, landscaping, and berming proposed around the perimeter of the site. Since the site is located within the interfacility traffic area, the applicant appeared before the TA-ITA committee in August of this year. The committee found the proposal to be inconsistent with the recommendations for the area and voted to oppose the project by a 7-2 vote. Due to the site's location within the Innovation Park, approval by the Virginia Beach Development Authority is required. The request received unanimous support from VBDA in July of this year and will be subject to additional review by the VBDA as the site and the building details are refined through the process, and that's required by the Innovation Park Design Guidelines. Staff has received 16 letters of opposition to this request, noting concerns with the loss of open space and incompatibility with the area. There was 1 speaker in opposition and 2 speakers in support at the Planning Commission hearing. Ultimately, the Planning Commission voted to recommend approval by a 7-3 vote with 2 added conditions, which are seen on the slide here. 1, to require the installation of 11-foot wide shared use path with landscaping conforming to the requirements of the Public Works Design Standards Manual and to the satisfaction of Parks and Rec, and a condition that the bulk storage yard use would be contingent on the commencement of construction of the building on the site. The updated plan shown on the slide here was received yesterday afternoon, a copy of which should have been passed out at everybody's individual seats. So what this plan shows is a shift of the parking lot slightly to the west to accommodate that 11-foot wide shared use path and landscaping along the eastern perimeter of the site. The final 2 items are a conditional use permit request, one for motor vehicle sales, the other for an automobile repair garage at 245 Pennsylvania Avenue in District 4. The applicant intends to use the existing buildings on the site for the proposed uses. Adequate parking is provided on the site to support the uses, not including the vehicle display area. The applicant is requesting 2 deviations with this request. The first to allow a minimum lot size of 18,620 square feet, where the ordinance requires a minimum of 20,000 square feet for motor vehicle rental and sales, and then a second to allow a 6-foot tall fence within the front yard setback, where our ordinance would typically set a maximum of a 4-foot height. Since the site is located within the Central Village District of the Pembroke SGA, staff is recommending a 5-year time limit on the request. Staff has not received any opposition, and the Planning Commission voted to recommend approval by an 8-1 vote. Mayor, that does conclude my presentation, and I'll stand by if there are any additional questions.
Okay, Amelia.
I just want to, commend you all for always keeping that strategic plan in the 5 years. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this point, we're ready for some council discussions and comments. Rosemary?
I just thought I would bring up Election Day, November 4th. That is also our first of the month meeting day. And sometimes we choose not to have a meeting that day. And I just put the formal session maybe onto the next week. And just, I'm not proposing that we do it, but I thought I would ask to see what y'all would like to do. If you'd like to maybe not have a meeting that day.
Patrick?
Vice Mayor, I think Council already handled that.
Yeah, so 3 years ago, you codified a change that if the first meeting in November was on the same date as Election Day, that you would then move your meetings back. The additional complication this year is that then the second Tuesday is Veterans Day. And so by operation of law, that day would have moved to the 12th, which is a Planning Commission day. And so back in August, we moved the date from the 11th back to the 25th. So your voting meetings in November will be 18th and 25th.
Okay.
Well, at least now everybody knows.
That's why we have council comments. Oh, yeah. Michael?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of things, and I'd like to start with one that is obviously the most serious. And that's just to say a few words about the impact of the storm that occurred here last week. and particularly in District 3, but we know there was flooding that occurred across the city. In the wake of Hurricane Matthew and in the incidents of flooding that have occurred since then, people across the city, and especially in the neighborhoods I serve, are deeply impacted by recurrent flooding that happens in their neighborhoods. It's scary because people lost everything they had. They lost their homes. That your home is your castle. Property was destroyed. Lives were interrupted. People had to spend months with their families in hotel rooms waiting for support from their insurance companies and the federal government, friends and family as they rebuilt their homes, contemplated how to rebuild their homes. Their cars and other property was destroyed. Their sheds were flooded. Garages destroyed. All you had to do was drive around, and I wasn't on council then, but just drive around and watch, look at the piles of people's family belongings
On the front lawn.
on the front lawn. It was devastating. And the result of that experience, continued experience that people have had with rising waters, approaching hurricanes, you've heard me talk about this many times, is traumatic. And it deeply impacts our quality of life, the sense of safety that we have about our property and our lives. And I know this applies to people across the city, but it's especially concentrated in District 3. There's a sense of frustration when an incident like what happened on last Tuesday occurred, and there was flooding. Cars were flooded. Cars were floating down South Plaza Boulevard and another South Boulevard, South Plaza Boulevard, many other places. People couldn't get home. Took me a long time to get home after our council meeting, only because I was only able to because a constituent called me to express his concern for the flooding, and he told me how to get home because it took him 2 hours to figure it out. And so this is a matter of the highest seriousness for our city, and continues to be for our community. And yet, as I was just saying, we got almost 8 inches of rain in just an afternoon and early evening. The the flood protection program that's underway is just that. It's underway. We know that it's scheduled to be completed in 2031. And so while improvements are being made, projects are moving forward, a storm hit us. The good news is that we didn't have widespread structure flooding. I'm actually not aware of anyone that I've spoken to personally where we had flooding in someone's home. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but it wasn't widespread in the manner that it was in Hurricane Matthew. The waters receded very quickly, so that's good. That's a contrast with Matthew. We're better positioned. We have tide gates. We have pump stations. There's temporary pumps. I could get into great detail about all the different mechanisms that are underway. The Boat Creek Stormwater Park is emerging as we speak. But in the interim, we need to do 2 things in my view. One, and I think the city has done a good job in the wake of the storm by putting out a video, by explaining that we did have a tide gate at Lake Windsor. There are temporary pumps there that can pump 70 feet per second. 70 CFCs per second. The permanent pumps, when installed after permitted and manufactured, they're in the process. Just for contrast, we'll pump 800. So that's a huge, it's more than 10 times the volume per pump that would create relief just in Lake Windsor. And we're not, I said I wasn't going to get into detail, but we're not even talking about the tide gate and pump station on South Lynnhaven that hasn't even begun construction yet. All of these things take time. Frankly, the federal government is in some ways an impediment. That's a word I'm going to use because we have to get these projects permitted and designed and planned, and then they have to be permitted. We know that there are economic and social factors that have caused increases in pricing, workforce challenges, delays. There's only so much concrete out there and qualified construction workers to do these projects. All of these are reasons for what is a legitimate explanation of the challenges that are going on. But at the end of the day, when water is rising up and toward your home, it doesn't matter. You don't care about any of that. What you care about is what is the city doing today to protect my life and to protect my property. So I think in the interim, we need to do two things. We need to be more transparent about where we are with this project. I think our city staff has done a great job, but we really need to blast it out there. Where are we? Where are we today? What can people expect for the future? And the other thing we have to do is to explore and prioritize additional shorter and medium term assurances for people who live in those neighborhoods. These are we're talking about, I know across the city, and especially here, hardworking people. All they want to do is send their kids to school who do well, create opportunity, go to work, take care of their homes. It's beautiful homes. People take such pride and enjoyment in the lawns and the homes, and they take beautiful care of it. And then you see the waters rise and you see your car floating down the street. It's not acceptable. And we have to make sure that we're explaining where we are, and we cannot falter. That's why I'm sitting here looking at our legislative agenda. We're talking about, I'm not going to get specific, but we're talking about asking for things, and we're contemplating a variety of projects. We need to make sure this project, and you're going to see and continue to see, and I promise, can assure you, continue to see me advocate as I have and will continue to in connection with all of you and for the betterment of our community, to make sure that these projects are funded and on schedule. Cannot delay, we cannot falter, and people are counting on us.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's amazing, the information on the pumps. Do we have any idea when the permanent pumps are going to be ready and installed?
I'm going to defer to Patrick on that.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to get Director Hanson to come and give an overview of timeline for the pumps for that project. Well, Mr. Mayor, before LJ gets on to say some comments, I do want to acknowledge, basically after Hurricane Matthew, I think the city CIP budget, 8% of it was roughly flood protection. And now I think it's safe to say it's about 30%. About 25% of your CIP budget is allocated towards flood protection, right? I think when we got here, we had probably one or two crews for stormwater maintenance and repairs in the neighborhoods. And I think you all probably added about 20 to 30 different individual people to join 2 or 3 different crews, right? So this has been a priority to council. You took around $37 million of the American Rescue Plan Act money. You have around $37 million for neighborhood enhancements for stormwater stuff, and most of that money is spent, if not all of it is spent. So the council has put the resources to get the stuff done. And just note as well, with the flood protection program, the bond referendum is basically taking projects that wouldn't have started in Mr. Bellucci's district till probably 2040s, 2050s, and accelerated it now. Obviously, as Mr. Bellucci said, it's totally unacceptable that folks still have to deal with the trauma that they are facing whenever the rains come at that level. But just imagine we're talking about projects that wouldn't have been able to come to the residents until probably about 20, 30 years from now, but for the courage of this council and the public for approving the bond referendum. LJ, go ahead and give an overview of that project.
Yes, ma'am. So the permanent pump station is part of the project that we have termed the Mega Bundle. It's a suite of projects that are in the Windsor Woods, Princess Anne Plaza, and the Lakes area. The particular pump station that goes right there at the Windsor Woods Tide Gate, that's probably the first project that we'll see the most activity on. That big mega bundle project has been in design for the last 18 months or so, and we are wrapping up the design phase, and then we go to, it's a design build project. So the next part of this will move into the conclusion of the design and then the construction by the firm. If we authorize the next part of this, and we anticipate that we will, what will happen is we'll start ordering some of the materials, and we'll start having some pre-development, some pre-construction activities that'll start to happen. All of this is a way of saying that you're going to see activity happening here again in relatively short order. We expect that the pump station will be complete by 2030, potentially the opportunity for it to come a little bit earlier. All of the projects are anticipated to be completed of the mega bundle. All of the projects of the mega bundle are anticipated to be completed by 2031. We just think this one might track a little bit ahead. Now that's frustrating because that's still a number of years out. So we're going to do everything that we can to accelerate it, but understand that this is a complicated project. These are huge pumps, and the infrastructure that has to be developed going into it is quite significant. We spent 4 hours this morning, we'll spend 4 hours tomorrow and 4 hours the day after working with our consultant to talk about how these things are going to be implemented, how we're going to track it, how we're going to operate it, and the conditions under which that they're going to operate. We'll continue to work on this. It is a massive undertaking, and I just also would like to say I am very much aware of the difficulties that our residents experienced, not just in this storm event. We had a storm event in September that impacted District 1 quite severely. And we know, and we're acutely aware of the issues that are going on. And since I have the microphone for just another second, there are other projects that are going on at the same time. We talked about the mega bundle, and it's a big part of, certainly would have had a huge impact on what happened last week. We also have construction projects that are getting ready to kick off on the Shore Drive area, Eastern Shore Drive, and also projects that are under design for the Lake Bradford area for the areas towards that part of the city. So I really want you all to understand we're doing everything we can as diversely and as widespread as we can.
Michael, please.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. And I would like to really follow up to that by saying there was a lot to be frustrated about last week, but there were also a lot of things to be grateful for and take some comfort in, because as I was meandering around trying to find a way to drive home without flooding my car, I saw yellow lights blinking all over the neighborhood. I saw professionals out in, I don't know what you call them, wetsuits, in the pouring rain, in standing water. You don't know what's in it. Don't worry, I'm getting to your team too.
No, I agree with what
Mr.
you're saying.
Hutchinson.
I've been in that water.
I saw them out there performing all kinds of different tasks and dealing with frustrated residents and traffic and pickup trucks causing wake on them. I saw the fire trucks out there too with the red lights all over. And it was really amazing to see. And this is part of what I think we need to work on, because I've been receiving a lot of frustrated folks who don't have as much information as I have. And in the confusion that occurs, sometimes people create their own narratives about what's happening. And I think we need to find a way to be more communicative about what the city is doing, and even let's be honest, even more so than we have been about what are our restraints, where are the challenges going to occur, but then also, to be honest, what if a storm was coming this weekend? You know, the ground is saturated. It's giving me Matthew flashbacks, and actually a storm could be coming, or two of them, some kind of combined storm. So on one hand, I'm very grateful and I'm aware that we have dedicated professionals and that we have invested resources in those professionals to do exactly what and you are doing exactly what we've asked you to do. And then on the other hand, you know, I have neighbors who lost property and experienced trauma, and they don't even they want to have greater confidence in the city of Virginia Beach that they have safety in their neighborhood. This has got to continue to be one of our top issues, and we need to continue to explore ways to accelerate shorter term solutions so that, I don't know, you know, we got to work on something to determine ways to make these neighborhoods safer and streets passable. So I'm you know, just thinking about those people that continue to, they call me, and the rain's really coming down hard and their home flooded, and they're very concerned and continue to be concerned. So thank you very much. I'd like to segue to Thursday night upcoming on a different note, possibly more positive and more fun. We're having a public safety self-defense workshop with Sheriff Rocky Holcomb at Bow Creek Rec Center. And our former colleague and friend and outstanding sheriff of the city of Virginia Beach, Rocky Holcomb, is bringing his team from the sheriff's office to help us keep our neighborhoods safe in a different way. Situational awareness, basic self-defense techniques, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. That's a different kind of town hall. Nobody's done a town hall like that before.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you.
Good stuff. And Michael, you know, let me just say, I really appreciate your passion and concern. I was doing home care rehab then, and I was actually treating patients after their houses were cleared and the walls were wet and the furniture was on the lawn. But once again, I think what we've done since then, and maybe it be little consolation, I think the difference between then and now, at least people can see the light at the end of the tunnel that something is coming. You see a lot of construction projects. There's one part I drive on the highway on 264. I look to the right and I see all kinds of big pipes hanging there. You know, and we did make this our #1 priority. And I think we've been honoring this. And, you know, believe me when I say, you know, Norfolk has a very, very similar flooding problem. We're not alone in this, but this is our highest priority. And I'll tell you what, as long as people at least see all the work going at Bow Creek Golf Course and, you know, the pipes on South Plaza and stuff like that, at least they see some light at the end of the tunnel.
Mayor, can I just add one thing? I apologize. I know I went long, but this is an issue worth going long over. And I do want to explicitly say this. The urgency of this situation is why this council made the difficult but necessary decision to move forward on the Pleasure House Point project. Those wetlands credits, in spite of what has been advanced and distributed to the public, were not available. And the only way that we would be able to unlock moving forward those projects for District 3 and in other areas of the city was to advance a wetlands restoration project that not only benefits Pleasure House Point and the ecosystem there, but provides the necessary credits. Anything other than the action that we took would have been not only irresponsible, but it could have delayed the flood protection that residents are counting on all of us to work together to deliver by years. And so I want to emphasize that. I don't hate to bring up a subject. This is a very serious subject, and it's one that we continue to hear about. And the flooding that occurred last week, the potential for additional damage that would occur from future hurricanes necessitated our immediate action. And we did the right thing, and I want to thank those of you who supported that.
And I concur. Okay, go Cash and then Stacy.
Thank you. Flood mitigation is very important, so thank you for your comments on that. Following up with protection and being concerned about our communities. The senior population in College Park is very near and dear to my heart, i.e. on Auburn Drive. Since being elected, I've worked on these 3 buildings, and it's the Sands. Across the street is Jamestown Commons. And then across from Jamestown Common is my amenities or the village or the old Beth Shalom. To which I'm going to say this. I am in need of some help there with all 3 buildings. I can tell you based on my own poll that they are unaware of the city services that we offer for seniors. And let me be clear, today, this morning, from 10:30 to 11:30, I have my introduction of who I am. I do a listening session, which, council, we need to think about having, I think we started a pilot program of listening sessions. I really think that that's very much needed again, especially for our senior communities. And then I went over my roles and responsibility of what I'm supposed to do as their city council member. I think there's a large confusion among senior services or senior facilities because it has a lot of state overlay and federal overlay. And so you come in as a city council member and, you know, they go, so how can you help us? When most of us are on Medicaid, Medicare. I tell you how I've been able to bring some relief to them. Most of their activity coordinators in all 3 facilities, which are over 500 senior citizens, most of them are living where they can't make ends meet. And IE means food. And so I'm grateful to have connected with Reset Inc., which is on Military Highway, which is about 30 feet away from their prospective buildings. But it's very concerning to me that their program directors or activity coordinators are searching for food. And so I'm petitioning our city staff, I'm petitioning my colleagues. Listen, I need some help with my seniors. And I can only give them resources, but then I have to work. And so I want to make sure on Auburn Drive, if we have any access or any resources to help the Sands, which most of them are living on Medicaid, and then Jamestown Common, they are doing independent living, so they have a bus and transportation, but the Sands does not have transportation. So I'm seeing my seniors, I'm watching them. I park and they're catching the bus by themselves. And so I'm in need of, I've connected with Southeast Services, Senior Services of Southeast Virginia. I've connected with them. They came out and spoke at Jamestown Commons, but they are experiencing a driver shortage. And so we need some help there. And this morning, to end on a positive note, I was grateful to really connect with the residents of the Village, which is the new name for Beth Shalom. When I talk to my community and I say, hey, I'm at the Village, they go, what's the Village? If I say the old Beth Shalom, then they go, yeah, got it. And I think this is, we're beginning the Jewish holiday, as I'm correct. Is that correct? Yes, yes. And so it was very apropos for me to do that today and celebrate the Jewish holiday. But what I'm just going to end on this note. I've got 500. And so we are instituting a neighborhood watch along with their coordinators. I'm in partnership with their management, not against their management. I'm in partnership with the fire department. I'm in partnership with Southeast Services or Senior Services of Southeast Virginia. I'm in partnership.
And so if you can offer any resources to those three major buildings that house a collection of wisdom, I'm open to it.
Patrick, any suggestions?
None at this time, Mayor. We'll follow up.
I'll tell you what, why don't we do this? We have the Mayor's Commission on the Aging, and we have some volunteer folks that, let's get them engaged. Okay, and then you also got the Chartway building, that there in Providence that has a lot of, seniors there. So it's an epicenter for what's going on, but I'll be glad to help you out.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Stacy, and then Worth.
Thank you, sir. Just want to bring up that the construction, the CIP on Shore Drive has started pretty much in full earnest. And the Councilman Schulman and I were at the Bayfront meeting last week, and people were complaining about the condition of the road, and the staff indicated there would be milling started, and it was almost like there was somebody in the room, because as we left, I passed and they were milling the road. And people were like, okay, I know I complained, but thank you. But to that end, a number of people are saying, well, we had no idea, we were given no notice. And I know I did a town hall, I went to every Civic League meeting I go to. I know Councilman Schulman did the same thing. We went to the Bayfront Advisory, they had a whole full briefing. Staff has come out to a number of the Civic Leagues and given briefings. So, but to that end, is there a way, I know when Dominion did their project on the repair lines in the same area at the same time, they sent out a small little postcard to all the people in the affected area and said, we're going to do some major work in your area, go to this site for more information. I think that'd be very useful if we could do that as a city, to whenever we have one of these major projects, just to send out a little postcard saying, go to this website, because it's a nice website for any of you that are watching and have complained about the lack of communication. The website is fantastic, but I think if we could just send out a little postcard to the people in the affected areas saying, go to the website and sign up for your newsletters that will keep you updated, it would go a long way to, at least we'd be able to say, you got a postcard telling you where to go. So I'd make that request, that we look into the possibility of providing that information too.
Another possibility I see around town where you're doing some projects, you see big signs that say ripple effect, we're working on it. Maybe along the corridors, put up the sign so anybody that's riding the road from another part of town, that might be a possibility. But good point, Stacy. At least you got Shore Drive going. That's another project that was on the waiting list for a while. Okay, and Worth?
Thank you, Mayor. Dara, back on the flooding issue, and last week, recall last Tuesday, we got a presentation from Jeff Waller on the Oversight Board and Alicia with Jacobs Engineering. And so I did do a Facebook post on that. And so a lot of people don't really know, back to Councilman Bellucci's point, we need to blast it out more. And I know Communications Office does, but the link for the slide presentation, the slide deck is a PowerPoint. If we could make that into a link, and because we got a paper copy last week and really didn't, I don't know if we took it home afterwards or not, but if we had a link to share with our constituents and or post or whatever, it would be good, because there's a lot of valuable information in that slide deck, updates, costs, schedules, where we are engineering with all the projects around the city. And I think that would really help, because a lot of people, when I did my post, say, we need to know more information. So, and I will take this back to the Oversight Board, and we'll talk about more about how we can blast this updates out to the public.
Okay, great. Amelia?
Yes, one thing, as you mentioned just now about the flood, and I had someone call me up, and he says, come on out so you can go and see it. I had to tell him, well, I can't come out right now, but we will look into it. But I noticed whichever television was here, watching that. They kept showing it over and over. If you had been there, this is what was going on right at the same time on council. So that was good to see that broadcast again. I don't remember which channel did that. I also want to share that I put out, Josh, if I can borrow yours and show you, nope, the big.
Oh, sorry.
And as part of, because we let you know what we're doing across as we build with the Virginia African American Culture Center. This is a new tour guide to do with African American history tour. And if you look at it, it's called A Trail of Trials and Triumphs. And Visit Norfolk, Kurt Cross worked with me. This started when I told him what I was trying to do a little further. We're able to go up to the General Assembly. And with some grant that I had already from the VTC, I added 30,000. The VTC added another 100,000. So we have these, and it gives you literally day one, if you were coming from Williamsburg, coming down, covering 11 cities. Virginia Beach also donated, and several of the other cities all the way to Williamsburg. So it takes you through an itinerary of day one, day two, including, Virginia Beach. And I know one person says, well, Virginia Beach has 2 pages. Well, Virginia Beach did put some good money, and we were up and down with that. So they made, I think, about 50 to 70,000 of these, and they're now at 4 of the welcome centers, plus our welcome center in Virginia Beach. So you'll see it, and I'll try and bring a few more, so a lot of people who would like to get a copy of that, because it tells the little history of different areas in, got Hampton covered, all the way through Fort Monroe. We go on through to Portsmouth, and on all the way up to Williamsburg. And we hope one day to make another that goes up through Richmond. But this is the first, so this is why I'm sharing it with you. We're real excited. It was well worth it, even though I wore my joints out going up and down to Richmond. But just wanted to give you all a copy of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Hutch.
Just 2 quick things. We were invited, I think all of us, but it's open to the public and free, is the Symphony by the Sea concert series. I'm admittedly not a music person, not any style, don't really listen, never have. My wife, on the other hand, she's quite into it. But it was fun. My point is that for those of us like me, it's a pretty good evening, especially the fall weather had come in. So for us locals that may not go down to the beach as much during the summer, it was a great evening to go down there and listen to some stuff that I would not normally listen to. About the right amount of time, about an hour and a half, and I was good. But I got to talk to a lot of different people. Just mingling and being part of the crowd was really fun. So I suggest everybody to do it, and I appreciate Kit and everybody that is putting that on, and Neptune, and it was quite fun. The second thing is, I'm not sure if you're going to talk about it, but the air show.
Yep.
I tell everybody I was involved in like 10 to 15 air show practices right over the years. There all the time for the EM standpoint and fire and the whole 9 yards. But I never went to the air show until Sunday. So it was quite astounding to me and how fun it was. And I'm the proud parent of an H-60 pilot. My son is a H-60 pilot, and so it was very interesting to see all the different airframes and what the Navy brings to the fight. It's quite impressive. And the Air Force had a little bit of a show going on inside the show, and there was a little bit of fun about that. But seeing all the different airframes was quite impressive. So I suggest anybody that can go should. And also something to be very proud of is the 5th grade on Friday. We started that back. Aaron Sutton was still here when we started that, and quite phenomenal. And now we include Chesapeake. So we get, I don't know how many kids exactly, but it's a bunch. It's a whole lot. They use the back gate to bring them in and drive them out onto the airfield. So I'm sure it's pretty cool for them to be able to see that. as well. That's on Friday. They use it as kind of the practice day, but it gives the kids seeing something they've never seen. So pretty neat. Thank you.
Yeah, John?
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, Councilmember, my twin girls are fifth graders, and they got to partake in that. My wife chaperoned, and like, how cool is that to have an experience, not just as kids, but I mean, for all of us to be able to see what was on display, and how can you not be proud of our country and our city? Shana Tova is Happy New Year in Hebrew, so Happy New Year to all my friends who celebrate Rosh Hashanah. Apples and honey is a tradition for a sweet New Year, so if anybody wants to partake, please do. Agree with, just notifying people, especially Mayor, you mentioned on the corridors. I mean, I know we're really great communications office and everybody sending postcards out to adjacent properties that are immediately affected, but because these routes carry, 30, 40,000 plus vehicles a day, I know there are social media posts and other things that we do, but to the extent that we can make sure that everybody is aware that it's going to be a nightmare on Shore Drive for a little while we get these much needed and overdue road projects done. And last, I hope you don't mind, Councilmember Remick, the lights on the Greenwich. Okay, yes, sir. We had a request from a constituent to light up a city asset pink in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month in October. It is about to be October, and I think we can only do that via a council ordinance, and the next opportunity for us to vote and approve an ordinance would be into October since we don't meet formally again. I did speak with the Public Works Director, mentioned that this was kind of a quicker turn. I know they prefer 30 days or more, but I mean, even if it bleeds into a little bit of October, if it's somehow possible, I think Councilmember Remick and the Vice Mayor mentioned that they would be able to co-sponsor, so we could.
I'll do it.
So, yeah, being a girl dad and, pink's my favorite color, and breast cancer means something I think all of us, I know. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. All right, let me finish up, and I'm gonna, Hutch, thank you very much for those comments on the air show. I think it means a lot. I always say that the Navy is part of the DNA of this city, and it was a remarkable event. And once again, I think over 300,000 people attended. We'll get the final. Last year it was 325, Patrick. It's a remarkable display of pride to see what our military actually does and all those wonderful toys that they have. And it was a huge crowd. It was a well-managed crowd. But Patrick, I want to give kudos to all the public safety and, the traffic management. I tell you what, it couldn't get better. When you talk about getting all those thousands of people on a naval installation, and once again, we're in a high-risk thing, terror attacks and everything. It takes a lot of, Josh, let me say this, chutzpah to be having, events like that. But once again, the crowd was magnificent. People were happy, and a tremendous amount of pride. The other thing I went also after that was they had on 11th Street the Atlantic Wildfowl Heritage Museum celebrated their 30th anniversary, and it's right next to the cottage there. And I had no idea they were there 130 years. And right in the middle of all these wonderful new buildings in there, you have a true, piece of history right there about way back when Virginia Beach, was just budding, and I think it's amazing. The other thing is, I'm really proud to announce we like to celebrate many of our communities, and a very vibrant part of our community is the Philippine community. And we had a meeting today, and they're getting ready to bring back Phil Fest, and it's going to be on October 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And I'm going to pass these out for you to see. They have a wonderful events and just shows something about Rudy Loop, that really attracts people.
District 5.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, this is another point of pride. And Hutch, you point out the fact that we have so many events that really attract so many different type of people, here in the city. I mean, we started off with a rodeo and, a barrel racing and everything else, and point break and all different kinds of events, sand soccer. We are indeed blessed as a city, so I just wanted to pass that on. Okay, at this point, the chair will entertain a motion to recess into a closed session pursuant to the exemptions from open meetings allowed by section 2.2, 3711A Code of Virginia as amended for the following purposes: personnel matters, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or appointees of any public body pursuant to section 2.2, 3711A1, and that's for council boards, commissions, committees, authorities, agencies, and employees. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Councilor Berluci?
Aye.
Councilor Cummings?
Aye.
Councilor Hutchinson?
Aye.
Councilor Jackson Green?
Aye.
Councilor Remick?
Aye.
Councilor Ross Hammond?
Aye.
Councilor Rouse?
Aye.
Councilor Sherman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wilson? Aye. Mayor Dyer?
Aye.
10-0.
Okay, we are recessed into close. Back to order, do I have a motion to certify the closed session?
So moved.
Second?
Councilor Berluci?
Aye.
Councilor Cummings?
Aye.
Councilor absent, Councilor Hutchinson?
Aye.
Councilor Jackson Green?
Aye.
Councilor Remick?
Aye.
Councilor Ross Hammond? Aye. Councilor Rouse? Aye. Councilor Sherman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wilson? Aye. Mayor Dyer?
Aye.
I voted 10-0 to certify the closed session in accordance with the motion to recess.
Hey, thank you all, great conversations today, we are adjourned.